Good evening, everyone. It's a little after 7, 5 past, 6 past. I'll call the meeting to order. I would ask if anyone's recording, if they'd make it known. Thank you. First item of business would be the minutes of January 22nd. Have you folks had a chance to review that? You're prepared? Any corrections or?
I didn't see any to entertain a motion to endorse.
I would.
Accept the minutes for January 22nd, as written. Second.
This is to, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Very good. Next item on the agenda, do we put the agendas out there?
The agendas are on the table.
Are they? No, I mean for the public.
Yeah, for the now. I guess they got used up.
Oh, okay.
Do people need more agendas? I'll make some more copies.
Next item on the agenda is an approval not required plan for Kate Benton, 25 Towhee Road. Do.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for the record. I'm Bob Rogers, GAF engineer. This Form A plan doesn't create any new lots. It doesn't create any new rights. It doesn't extinguish any rights. There's an existing 30-foot right-of-way on the Benton's parcel. And so we want to put that right-of-way on its own parcel of land so that it isn't on the primary lot anymore. It's on its own separate lot. So we have usual references on the plans, the prior survey plans. The right-of-way is for access to the water. It would not be considered in any way for use as frontage.
I've reviewed the notes on the plan. It all conforms to the regulations. I've reviewed this with the town assessor as well to determine if there were any issues.
Is this going to be conveyed or?
Well, Lot 3A is a vacant piece of land. There's no, there are no buildings on Lot 3A. So, yes, at some point, Lot 3A would be conveyed, and but it's not. We're not there yet.
Mm-hmm.
So all this does is put the 30-foot private way onto its own parcel of land. So if and when someone chooses to build on 3A or sell 3A, that right-of-way is not included as part of the property.
And no one who has deeded rights to that access is affected?
Well, their attorney is Mark Deshays from the city of New Bedford, and so I have no knowledge of what their agreements are, how many people have rights to it. That would be Mr. Deshays to take care of. But certainly does not result in any new building lot, just the removal of the right of way. If you look at there's a little corner at the street, so we have to maintain 180 feet of frontage for the lot, so there's still a really small triangular
Yeah.
portion that's gonna be an easement on that lot for the right of way.
Mhm.
Other than that, it'll be a separate parcel.
Entertain a motion to endorse Form A.
Sure.
Second.
Motion was made and seconded. Any, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? So moved. You want more than one of these?
What do you want to take? Use the Sharpie pen.
This- Thank you.
Spare on last time.
I want everything.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Just sign one. Next item is a public hearing for articles for the town meeting warrant. These articles include riding stables, non-conforming uses and structures, drive-through restaurants, and adult-use marijuana establishments. Notice is hereby given pursuant to Section 5 of the State Zoning Act, Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, that the Wareham Planning Board will conduct a public hearing in Room 320 of the Wareham Multi-Service Center, 48 Marion Road, Wareham, Mass., Monday, February 12th at 7 PM to discuss the following proposed amendments to the Wareham zoning bylaw. The first item on the list is the riding stables. It was an attempt to make our, clean up the language on the riding stables in the bylaw, which all this seeks to do is change the definition of a riding stable to more closely match that of the general laws. I don't know if anyone is here that interest on that would like a comment, or? It's strictly a change of definition, or a clarifying of the definition of riding stables.
Correct.
I don't know what we've done in the past, we'd have to vote on them individually. Board, any questions of the board?
No.
Anyone want to speak on that topic? Hearing none, I will ask for a recommendation of the board.
The vote would be to recommend it to town meeting.
If that's your desire.
We'll approve the changes for the definitions of riding stables as written. Second.
Thanks. We have a motion's been made and seconded. If there's no discussion, I'll ask, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? That's all of us. Next is a change in the zoning bylaw on how we deal with non-conforming uses and structures. Is this a total new section?
This is a total replacement of Article 13 of the zoning bylaw. And this was rewritten by the building commissioner and myself. You had a presentation by the building commissioner last.
What this seeks to do is add some clarification to the bylaw as to how these structures are dealt with, and allow the building department to make more decisions in-house and not send people to public hearings and to the Board of Appeals and draw out the process. It's rather lengthy. Any questions from the board?
No.
And I would say from the show of hands that that's not why you're here tonight either. So I would look to the board for their recommendation.
Entertain a motion to accept the changes as written or submitted for the town meeting.
I think we want to say recommend favorable action.
Yeah.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That's all of us.
Along with that is a redrafting of the special permit and variances section of Article 14, administration. This is what you were presented, very similar to what you were presented with in the workshop at the last meeting. What it does is clarify the standards by which special permits and variances can be issued, providing more clarity to the regulations.
Once again, anyone, questions, comments from the board?
That's all gonna be part of 13?
No, this is part of Article 14.
Again, it's pretty consistent with our discussion last time.
Mm-hmm. Would you care to make a motion?
Would you, I move that the 1460 special permit, 1470 variances be entered into the zoning bylaw,
You recommend it to town meeting,
for town meeting.
town meeting vote.
Recommend favorable action, yep.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Next up is an article on drive-through restaurants. A lot of discussion has come up on whether they should be allowed or not, so, or under what circumstances they should be allowed. What this gives a couple of options. One would make it a special permit in Wareham Village 1, Onset Village 1, Commercial Strip, Commercial General, and Commercial Planned. Some of the criteria for gaining the special permit would be internal site circulation is found to be safe for cars and pedestrians, well-defined lanes and minimal crossing of lanes. To site access provides enough space for vehicles to enter and queue, and for vehicles exiting to pause and queue for exit. There'd be trash receptacles available for disposal from vehicles, and no direct entrance or egress onto or from a state highway. The other option would just make it a special permit in the commercial general zoning district. I'm sure somebody must have comments on that.
I'd like to know on the second part. My
Good.
name is Jim Manise.
Could I have you come up and use the mic, please?
Sure. I figured I spoke loud enough. My name's Jim Manise, and I've been a longtime resident here. I live on Cranberry Highway now.
Mm-hmm.
So in the general commercial district, do the conditions that are put forth for all the areas, all the districts, will that be enforced also? No curb cuts coming directly out to Route 28?
In any new establishments,
Or any establishments want to have a drive-through? So the curb cuts, they have to use what's already there, have to be internal circulation.
if we decide to go with just commercial general, they will only be allowed in that zoning district.
What were the conditions that are put forth in all the other districts?
They would not be allowed there.
I understand that.
Mhm.
But would it be internal circulation only and no curb cuts and no direct access out onto Route 28?
That's the way the criteria are written now in the draft. There'd be no access onto the state highway,
For
no direct access,
the general commercial?
Mhm.
correct?
Or in the option one, it gave a couple other, it gave commercial strip and on the villages the opportunity, under the same special permit criteria.
I think originally, it must have been, 10, 15 years ago when they rewrote the bylaws. They didn't want the commercial strip in West Wareham to, again, start to be like it is over in East Wareham, how it just kind of proliferated.
Mhm.
So that's, I think, of concern for many people. I'd just like to take those things in consideration as we move forward.
And that's kind of the tack we're taking, is we don't want to repeat the problems that are down there on here. So we try to put a mechanism in that would allow it under very specific circumstances, to eliminate the lane crossing incidents and the need to put a median strip down the middle.
And I don't, I think we have a big thing going with Don't Trash Wareham, and I don't know if it promotes more refuse disposal out the windows or not, the drive-throughs. I pick up quite a bit of that, a lot of it from fast food restaurants.
Mhm.
But thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
I think Howie was...
Evening, gentlemen. Howard Smith, West Wareham. This is one concern that greatly concerns me, because as the previous speaker said, a number of years ago, there was a strategic plan that was somewhat implemented in Wareham, and this is it. And I believe most of the boards in town have a copy of this. And this was one of the issues that was addressed back then, having to do with drive-through restaurant, zoning, and a lot of other things. Just to show people, it was a rather condensed report that was put together by the private citizens back then. And we have a couple of members of that committee in this room tonight. one of the things that bothers me is, yes, the gentleman, previous speaker was correct. We were trying to maintain some of the integrity in West Wareham. As a business owner in town for many years, I dealt with a lot of customers and I heard a lot of things. I also was introduced to a lot of people that came in from out of town. And one of the things I asked them many times is, what brought you to Wareham? And most of the time, it was the fact that they were coming in because of the rural, peaceful setting. And most of them mentioned that they liked West Wareham because that's the atmosphere that was created there. They did not particularly care to go east of town. I'll leave it at that. So I hope that, certainly hope that that's part of your consideration. There was a couple of articles that were presented back then, I believe it was in 2005. Some of them were brought before town meeting, some of them were voted on, some of them were not. A couple of the articles were kind of quickly disposed of because we had a little different political atmosphere back then, and thank God that's gone. But some of those articles were not brought up for discussion at that point in time. So I certainly hope that it's something that, you know, if you people have not read, that you possibly would consider some of the conditions and some of the things that were set forth in that strategic plan.
Good evening. I'm Nancy McHale. Again, I live in West Wareham. I'm fully aware of the West Wareham Strategic Plan Committee that Mr. Smith spoke of. And I would hopefully you gentlemen have all read that. If you have not, please do so. If you need a copy, either myself or Howie can provide that to you. But more than that, I understand the language in there saying about the state highway. I want to bring the issues of Toby Road back to the circle as well. Toby Road is a mess. It is horrible, and that also cannot handle many more curb cuts. I mean, it is dreadful. There are spaces where curb cuts or restaurants could go on Toby Road. Please don't allow those either. And it's, you know, the whole area. The traffic is bad. People aren't paying attention. That's the driver's issues. I understand that. I understand that the businesses want to get as much business in and out as they possibly can. But there's also an aesthetic and a safety issue. And we need to make it livable for the folks who have lived in that area for many, many years. Thank you very much.
I think someone in the back had their hand up there again. Oh.
I was in.
Good evening, Sandy Slavin. I have a question for you. You talked about number 1 and number 2. Sorry, I didn't come out right. Option 1 and option 2. But when you talk about a curb cut directly to a highway, give me an example where you can have a drive-through. If I look at McDonald's, it's an exit to the parking lot, but it's also leaving a drive-through. Is that considered
The criteria that we've recommended for achieving the special permit hopefully would eliminate any direct access from a drive-through to a state highway.
So anybody
It would have to be either through a larger site like Wareham Crossing or the Walmart corner or through a signalized intersection.
So what we've seen out of Wendy's, Burger King, McDonald's would not be allowed anymore?
Correct.
Because you seem to be driving right through the drive out onto the road. If I was to look at the Dunkin' Donuts at, is it Exxon? The gas station opposite Morse Lumber? Their
it's a mobile.
drive-through does not directly go into the highway, it go through their service station to get to it. Would that be allowed? That type of design will be allowed?
In my mind, it wouldn't, because it would encourage crossing of the state highway.
No,
You know, that's what we're
I
trying to.
think you said direct exit onto the state highway.
And those driveways do directly exit onto Cranberry Highway.
So that type of situation would not be allowed anymore for a new structure?
The,
Because I don't know where to draw the line between getting out of a drive-through or leaving a parking lot to get to a highway. Is that making sense? I'm trying to understand how you draw the line between one condition and the other.
and that's kind of what we struggled with, is we didn't want the situation we have in East Wareham, where you can just cross 2 lanes of opposing traffic to get into or out of a fast food restaurant. Fast food restaurants generally have more traffic, more lane crossings, more possibilities for incidents.
So this is really trying to say right turn only, a left turn only, no, as opposed to a curb cut directly onto the highway. I'm trying to understand.
Or
it.
access to the site through a signalized intersection or some sort of order. I realize it's not perfect, you know.
I'm just trying to picture what it would look like versus what we have already and what might be proposed for future business.
So you can see how we struggled trying to
Yeah.
verbalize it.
I have watched you several evenings struggling with this, yes, and so, then the next question. In the first condition, you listed a series of permitted areas. Can you give me a hint of what they might be? I'm not up to date on the most current plot
The
plan.
first option would allow them in Wareham Village 1, Onset Village 1, Commercial Strip, Commercial General, and Commercial Planned. So,
Okay, I'm going to look, if I'm sitting in West Wareham, what does that mean? If I'm trying to put a businesses around Walmart and maybe that marketplace, what does it mean? Are those areas included in that option
I
one?
believe the marketplace is in Commercial General, and the Walmart front parcel is in Commercial Strip.
So, under this option one, it's possible with a special permit, both sites could have a drive-through if they were the correct traffic pattern that you've considered. The option two was in a commercial,
Commercial General,
and,
which is roughly from Toby Road, more or less, to I think what that,
Through here.
So
It'd be
that-
past Charge Pond Road.
yeah, it would be down by probably the vicinity of Perry's Ice Cream.
okay. From Toby, so that would not include the parcels in front of Walmart?
Not if you just went with Commercial General, no.
Thank you.
Any preference either way? We're looking for input. We're looking,
I'm just trying to get information to see which way I might vote at town meeting. Thank you.
Mic is on. Peter Title, not a West Wareham resident. With regard to your, looking at the various zoning areas in here, where we've got sort of a hodgepodge of strip commercial and general commercial in West Wareham, have you given any thought to looking at this in a different manner? It seems to me that within the past decade or maybe 15 years, the vast majority of the sort of development that I hear the West Wareham residents perhaps not being too happy about has taken place within a probably half-mile stretch along that road. And with that in mind, have you given any thought to limiting the drive-throughs, if you do recommend a bylaw change in this regard,
to that area that is presently built up, so that once you get past the old Nissan factory, you're not looking at a whole heck of a lot from there to the West Wareham line.
In that one stretch, I think we have 3 different zoning districts to deal with.
Commercial strip, industrial, and general commercial.
That's why by putting tough criteria in for the special permit, we're hoping that that will in itself limit the area that people will be exposed to this traffic.
Okay, it's not just the traffic, it's also the visuals. If you put these in, in where the existing, big box area is, you are going to increase the traffic there. You're certainly going to increase it around Toby Road. You're going to increase it on Cranberry Highway in that area. But I think people are also concerned, again, they talk about the rural character. It's not just traffic. It's what they see when they drive up the road. It's nice to be able to look out when you get to the S-curve and look out and see a cranberry bog. Obviously, nobody's going to put a drive-through there. I don't think you can. But I guess my point is, from that point north, you've got some houses, a few businesses, but it looks like a rural type of town. It has a rural kind of character. And I'm just wondering if you would give some thought going forward, because you've got plenty of time. I think these are going to wind up going on the special town meeting warrant, which doesn't close until March 15th. I think that would be the preference here from the selectmen's point of view, to give you the time you need to mull through it. We could always throw a couple of placeholders on tomorrow night, but I don't really see the point. We can put them on the special and give you guys another month to consider it, and to consider some of the input you've gotten here tonight, so I was just trying to put that thought in your heads. Thank you.
I see this is on the special. The other one's on the special also?
No, they're on the annual.
Well, just to clarify, there's 2 specials this year. The first special takes place a month from tonight, and that's the one on the marijuana regulations. The second special will be within the annual town meeting, so it's the same night, so nobody has to show up to a special meeting to vote on West Wareham. I don't want people thinking that.
Anyone else? Howie?
Howie Smith again, haven't changed my name yet. Actually, a couple of speakers.
Use the other mic.
That better?
No,
Is the green light on?
use the one next to me.
Here's the other one.
Use the other one.
That's better, thank you.
Story of my life. Okay, a couple of speakers, previous speakers did bring up a few other things that kind of refreshed my memory. In that strategic plan, there was quite a few things that were discussed regarding the landscaping along this property, the architectural structures, their design. There actually was a special section in there regarding the England Village section beyond Cranberry, the S-curve and so forth. So there was a lot of special things that were put into place back then. And for people 15 years ago to think of that, I think it's pretty astounding. Second thing is, semi-retired captain on the fire department, so I'm certainly not here speaking on part of the fire department, but as a personal person, being on the department for 54 years, traveling Cranberry Highway and so forth and so on, there have been a lot of accidents in that area. So I think by limiting the access is a step in the right direction. I kind of have a little different perspective regarding the situation in East Wareham and Cranberry Highway with what they're proposing down there. I don't think that's going to eliminate a lot myself. But anyway, regarding West Wareham in this area, I think there was a lot of consideration done in the strategic plan. And again, I will, if you have not reviewed it or seen it, I certainly hope you would. Thank you.
Anyone else? Anyone wish to render an opinion as to any direction you'd like to see? Toss the whole thing out, option A, option B?
That was a nice
nice invitation, thank you. Patty Wild from Toey Road, Wareham. I have a question. Do you have any control over how many establishments of this kind you can put a limit on per zoning area?
No, there's no number on that at this time.
Why not? I'll tell you why I asked this question. You know, we're trying to preserve the West Wareham side of Wareham. And I am tired of picking up trash along Indian Neck Road. And a lot of people are tired of picking up trash, and it's coming out of these drive-throughs. And so I personally take exemption to this, that you cannot control in some way the amount of these establishments to at least help curb trash disposal. We can't stop people from doing it necessarily, although I have some ideas about that, but I think that I thought of planning board plans exactly who can be where under certain circumstances.
Well, our thoughts were that by tightening the criteria on getting a special permit, that would be limiting in itself. You would be limited to sites that were large enough to have, like the malls, I want to call them malls, the shopping centers, where they would, they would not have to, you don't have those every, at least we didn't think we did, every 50 feet,
Okay, thank you.
I can't see who it is, but sure.
Chris Damiano, and I'm in Onset. And I would just like to say that Onset is such a beautiful village, and it has an old feel to it, and I don't feel like that type of establishment fits in that area. But more importantly, the rubbish and the trash that is down by the marina and the beaches. There's pizza boxes all over the place and rubbish, and I think you're just opening up an opportunity to double the amount of trash that's going to be at Onset Beach, and it's too beautiful to let somebody come in and trash like that. They're going to take the food and they're going to just throw it out the window and the wrappers, and it's just going to make it worse. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Any thoughts?
No, I would just like to add, Mr. Chairman, that your expressions of concern about traffic and curb cuts, we have struggled with it seriously, and we are very sensitive to your concerns. We're going to do our best to implement future planning in accordance with these concerns.
I would suggest you take advantage of the deadline for the special town meeting and put this under advisement.
I was just looking to see if there was anything that we could immediately talk about here. So that has not had, that's not had a article number attached to it or anything?
No.
Is that the way it was listed, both? Drive in and drive through? We separated that. All right, we can fix that up. the, oh, where's my, you wish to take any action on this? You want to discuss it further before?
I think we should go back to the drawing board a little bit, to refine this a little bit further.
All right.
We have time.
And with that, I will move on to the final item, which is adult use marijuana establishments. Pardon me while I- On the special town meeting on March 12th, you will see two articles. One which gives the town the authority to collect a 3% tax on sales by a marijuana retailer. And the other article would be to place the regulation of a marijuana establishment in a specific zone through the zoning bylaws. You know, since this was passed, there's been a lot of changes to definitions and things on the state level. But what we have proposed is limiting these adult establishments to the institutional, which the medical marijuana facilities are limited to, and industrial, and the commercial strip east of Glen Charlie Road. Glen Charlie Depot Street area, from there east. This would also limit the number of retailers in town to 3, which we are allowed to do as a percentage of the package store licenses in town.
A little background on this. This came from a state referendum in November of 2016. Wareham voted 6,490 in favor and 4,826 against. So they had voted in favor by 53%, which puts some limitations on what we can do with the bylaws. The Cannabis Control Commission was put in charge of regulations and licensing. They drafted regulations that were issued in December of last year. Final regulations are going to be issued in March 15th, a month from now. And the license applications are to be received April 1st. It was the Attorney General's office recommendation that local bylaws be adopted prior to the start of applications April 1st. The section of the regulations, of the state regulations, allows the municipality to take certain actions. We can accept an excise tax of up to 3% on retail sales. We can negotiate hosted community agreements, which could include impact fees of up to another 3%. And we can require conformance with town bylaws within some fairly significant restrictions. We can only specify the time, place, and manner of the uses. As the chairman pointed out, we can limit the number of retail stores to 20% or more of the package store licenses. We can specify that that the requirement for a 500-foot buffer to schools or where children congregate can be lessened. Not greater, but lessened. We may specify signage, but it may be no more restrictive than the liquor store signage requirements. The limitation is that the regulation not be unreasonably impracticable. We can't prohibit conversion from medical to retail, and we cannot prohibit transportation through the town. The unreasonably impracticable is defined by the state law that measures necessary to comply with the regulations, ordinances, or bylaws adopted pursuant to this chapter subject licensees to unreasonable risk or require such a high investment of risk, money, time, or other resource or asset that a reasonably prudent business person would not operate a marijuana establishment. We've mapped out buffer zones in the town. We have the maps that show some of that, some of those uses. What we've done is we've copied the guidance from the Department of Public Health. It says that a facility in which children commonly congregate includes facilities where children are gathered for a particular purpose in a structured and scheduled manner, or which are dedicated to the use of children, such as playgrounds, youth services programs, daycare centers, youth sports facilities, dance schools, and gymnastics schools. It includes a private home housing a family daycare center, but not a private home where children happen to live. It does not include such other facilities, such as a ice cream shop, where children may happen to congregate, but not in a structured or scheduled manner. So as the chairman pointed out, there are two articles. One is to accept the state law of the 3% on sales by a marijuana retailer. And the other is the proposed bylaw, which is broken up into 3 sections. It adds a definition for marijuana establishments based on the state regulations. It sets up process and standards, the special permit uses, buffers, and restrictions on the use, and adds it to the table of uses as a listing, as the third part. So in the article, after the definition, we rescind the section 391, which is the medical marijuana treatment center section, and the moratorium that's on the books right now for marijuana facilities, and we replace it with a section that specifies where the districts would be allowed. So we continue to have the medical marijuana allowed within the institutional district. Other marijuana establishments would be in the industrial and commercial strip district east of Glen Charlie Road, Depot Street, and Great Neck Road. As pointed out, the number of marijuana retailers would be limited to 3 separate establishments. There would be a requirement of 1,500 feet separation between them. They'd all have to be in conformance with the state regulations and licensing requirements for such establishments regarding buffers, access, and security. And the regulations are very stringent and specific as to a number of requirements for security, buffering, and access, as well as packaging and delivery through the town. All the marijuana establishments are going to have to be in conformance with the underlying zoning. Signage will be in conformance with the state regulations and the local zoning bylaws, which are Article 11 of the signs. And as before, use variances would not be allowed for any marijuana establishment or medical marijuana treatment center. In the implementation of this, the idea of issuing a special permit would require that the project be in conformance with the state regulations and licensing. And any revocation or license or permit by the state would result in a revocation of the special permit issued for the establishment.
Just a little background. What we were faced with up front was ban or no ban. And the state made it clear that if the town had voted positively on the referendum to allow recreational sale, you could not ban it without another townwide vote. Other towns that voted against the referendum were allowed to control it a little more within their town. So the next step there is, do you wish to control where and how this is done? Well, not so much how, but where. And we thought it would be prudent at this time, where the regulations are still evolving, to limit it to an area of a town. We had previously chosen the institutional zone for the medical marijuana, and the person or persons holding that license would be a prime candidate to get a recreational license. My thoughts were the industrial zone. It has buildings that are suited for cultivation, and it's kind of off the beaten track. It's not in the middle of town or in a shopping center, or it's, the people that would be going there would be going there for that purpose. You wouldn't be enticing walk-ins from kids and things like that. And then, if the town feels at a later date they would wish to expand upon that, or once the dust settles from all this newly written regulations, you can do that. But I think at this time, it's best to try to get some sort of control over the situation. Questions of the board?
Mr. Chairman, the definition of retail, that includes cultivation and retail?
When we did the medical, it was all lumped together as one. I don't know with these ever-changing documents if they're all going to be treated that way. The retail is taxed, but the retail...
So one of the questions I have is, can a license holder have a retail storefront and cultivate? And if so, does that have to be in the same permitted space? Meaning, can we have a storefront on Main Street and a cultivation in some other portion of town, and both are controlled under one license?
I don't know about the licensing, but I think it's set up that people can have retail establishments without any means of cultivation. They can buy from a larger cultivator.
Right, so what I'm saying is, so a retail storefront is 600 square feet, it's got some display cases in it. That type of establishment can be on Main Street. But if that license holder wanted to cultivate, and that building establishment did not allow them to cultivate because it just didn't have enough square footage, could they cultivate off-site and still operate under the same license? Or is that then considered two licenses?
My understanding is that's two different licenses.
That's two different licenses. So if somebody's, we would really need to know the amount that's going to be cultivated,
Now,
right?
You talking retail or you talking medical?
No, I'm talking retail. I'm talking recreational use of marijuana. I mean, with the medical, how many medical licenses were issued?
One medical facility.
19 open stores and 180 something provisional licenses.
I'm sorry,
19 open stores and about 180 provisional licenses statewide.
in the States, but I'm referring to Wareham only.
I'm not sure.
Just one.
Only one medical.
And was it permitted for a certain amount of cultivation?
No, it was not.
Only for retail space? Right. So the applicant would need to be very clear with the board on their intentions. I don't see that, again, will the industrial space allow for large-scale cultivation? And, I'm not in this business. I mean, it's just a matter of a couple of folding tables in the back of a shop somewhere? Is that enough to sustain a business, or do we need entire warehouses?
I believe it's a warehouse situation.
Yeah. So the last meeting we were here, we had a gentleman here from New Bedford on the medical side of the house, and they were cultivating in 100,000 plus square feet in New Bedford. So one of my concerns in the decision-making here is Are we limiting the uses of the licenses by where we permit it? That's one concern that I have. The other is that our industrial space is very precious. We need to be thinking of, how land is used throughout the town in general. Now, again, I'm not expert in this area, but if we just go back to the foundations of this recreational marijuana and go back to Colorado, one of the issues that they had was they opened the floodgates to all of their warehouse and commercial spaces, and it got consumed by the marijuana industry. It then disallowed the use of other industries to move into the community because all of this space was now occupied. So not that we're going to be at that scale, but proportionally speaking, we are scaled down quite a bit, so we should think about how we're going to use that space. One other question I have that's kind of dwelling in my mind, I've been trying to get it answered here, is there's one application where it can be home delivery. So in the case of home delivery, within the parameter of Wareham, home delivery would tell us we're entitled to the tax revenue from that. What happens with a Wareham established business, which now is not restricted in any way of going past our property lines or border, right? Sells to Rochester, sells to Plymouth. Is Wareham still entitled to that tax? Or is that now sold in another township?
I'm not aware of at what level or how it's going to be taxed. Whether the state will be collecting those fees and redistributing, or?
Yes, they will. DOR is going to collect the fees and distribute quarterly.
So if a Wareham license holder was to sell it in Rochester, Wareham would receive the tax revenue for that?
Yes. It's point of sale.
It's the point of, the point of sale would be Rochester, though.
The point of sale is the origin of the sale.
So the origin of the sale in Wareham, so that it rings through the register in Wareham?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so those were my two fundamental questions, and
I know on the medicinal, the regulations are very stringent, and I would assume that the adult use are going to be just as stringent. So, tracking where these sales are going and
The record
How often, I'm
keeping
sure.
is rather specific and extensive.
questions? Anyone here? Peter?
Yes, first off, I'd like to apologize, I guess, on behalf not of the town of Wareham, but the Commonwealth of Massachusetts for not getting its act together so that we have to drag all you people to a special town meeting on March 12th. Hey, nothing we could do about it. Secondly, a lot of work went into this bylaw. Ken Buckland, the town planner, came up with the original draft. It's been reviewed by town council. It's been reviewed by myself. I'm an attorney. Alan Slavin has reviewed it. Alan has gone to innumerable meetings up in Boston on this very topic over the past year as the state has floundered, flubbed, and sort of dragged this thing sort of to the finish line, which, by the way, wasn't even really defined until about 3 weeks ago. So what you have before you is pretty much, I think, a law that would appropriately limit initially the number of shops. If we find that there's, people are lining up outside the door on Saturday night and you've got to wait an hour in line, you can always go back to town meeting and allow more establishments. I think it's prudent to start off small. One of the things that has happened as states have legalized marijuana, I believe in the state of Washington, they didn't limit the number of establishments or didn't allow local control to limit the number of establishments. So everybody and his brother went into the marijuana business and they all failed. I mean, that doesn't serve us well either. To have everybody buying pot everywhere, all over the place, isn't going to work. The businesses will go under. It'll be difficult for us to get the tax revenue. And, to the concerns that they'll be everywhere, they would be everywhere. Once again, April 1st is the magic date, April Fool's Day. Who knew? The areas that were selected, the institutional one already had the medicinal marijuana host agreement with the people that are going in there. So there's really no change to that that district, if they choose to apply for a retail license, by the way, they go to the top of the list at the state level. So they've got dibs. The thought was, if you're only going to have 3, you need to make them relatively accessible, or as accessible as you can to everybody in town. So if you're an Onset, you don't want to have to drive to the industrial park. If you're in West Wareham, you don't want to have to drive to the Buzzards Bay line to get the stuff. So we've got a little bit of a geographic spread, as much as you can get with 3 licenses. They're in the places where we thought that people would object to them the least. They're not in the villages. You know, obviously not near schools, can't put them there anyway. So in the end, I hope that the planning board and you people will support this law going forward. It's the best effort we can come up with at this time. Let's implement the thing, get it going, see where it leads us, and, you know, your planning board, your planner, the selectmen, finance committee, we're not unreasonable people. If this thing doesn't work out, and a year from now we're saying, what the hell did we do, we can always go back and change it.
Mr. Chair, oh, sorry.
Good evening. So years ago,
I think I turned that off out of habit.
And could you identify yourself, please?
my name's Aaron Gomes.
Mhm.
So years ago, when Wareham Crossing came in, everybody, they was in a panic. You guys changed all the zoning laws. Over in West Wareham, they changed a bunch of things to general commercial, and then Wareham Village came in. They said they don't want drive-throughs, they don't want West Wareham looking like East Wareham. So you guys say that you guys put this now, maybe strict commercial, but why is it stopping or only starting at Glen Charlie and going down Cranberry Highway? What about the pieces of strict commercial from Robinson's down to there, where there's no schools and no kids' hangouts? Why is that area not included?
Just an attempt, as you heard earlier, that to spread them out evenly across town. I mean, that's certainly an option, but
I was just curious,
Mhm.
every time you say, you keep saying east of Glen Charlie, east of Glen Charlie,
Mhm.
but there's that strip commercial that's, I guess, forgot about, because you guys say it like that.
yeah,
It's
the,
kinda in the middle, you know, you got the industrial over there past this, and then the strip commercial starts at what, Robinson's, and comes down all the way down Cranberry Highway. So,
correct.
yes. I just don't want that area to be excluded
Mhm.
out of this.
Are you a business owner or
I do, I own some property over there, on both sides of Cranberry Highway. I work in the town, I work for the state, you know, on the roads, I'm always on the roads, and I see how it's spread out, and I just don't want that area to be excluded.
Mhm.
It's more accessible than crossing 2 lanes of Cranberry Highway, or in all those shopping districts. It's kinda wide open over there.
Point taken.
Thank you.
We don't want them crossing the road for a Big Mac, but it's okay for,
It's pretty dangerous on Cranberry Highway, we see many people, you know, getting hit and killed over there, and
Mhm.
I mean, a double solid line is a double solid line, you're not supposed to cross it either way, but.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay.
Good evening, Mr. Barrett, members of the board. Dave Walton, District 3. Before I say anything, I want people to understand I'm not some new person in town. I've been around here for over 75 years, or not quite 75 years. Paid taxes for over 40 and been a year-round resident for almost 20. So I'm not new. I also realize that there's very little that you people can do right now as far as this marijuana is concerned. I personally, it's just a matter of opinion, because that's one of the questions you asked. I think the whole thing is rather asinine. We got duped, the state, the town, started out for poor medical need, and that was just to stick the foot in the door, pry it open, and now bring everything in. The way it's worded here, I realize it's just writing and it doesn't mean anything, but when it says adult use marijuana establishments, That scares the dickens out of me, because I don't know if you people are well aware of it or not, but there's a gentleman who's opened a private club in Worcester right now. Now, whether the feds are going to come in and close them down, I don't know, but it is open. It is, you pay $50 to become a member, and it's like the old days of the opium dens. You go in and smoke all you want. He has the paraphernalia, and that's what's going on right now in Worcester. That sort of thing is, it scares the dickens out of me, because you step one of that foot, once that's in the door. I don't want to see Wareham known as, it's bad enough with the nip bottles we've got to pick up off the streets. It's bad enough with one of the refuse disposals downtown loaded with needles. On the beaches, people picking up needles, and I don't want to see a truck go by. I know it won't be allowed, but go by and say, Wareham grass, delivery guaranteed. We don't need that. I don't want to be known. I want Wareham to be known as the clean, nice town, a place that's fun to live and enjoyable, not the grass capital of northern part of the Cape. This is something that I realize that very few things you can do, but I just beg of you, when people come, be very careful. And point of interest that a lot of people don't realize, this is not I don't mean that a point of blame. You made the comment about the taxes, and you had two different things, 3%, 3%. Are you people aware of the fact that out in Colorado, they get over 30%, in Washington over 40%? I'm tired of hearing people saying that, well, we'll get taxes from this. We won't get squat from it compared to what these other people have done. We've let this commission up in Boston by all people who are pro-grass, and they've managed to sneak in just the way they want it to be, and we're going to get stuck. So I just beg of you people, there are limited things you can do, and I'm well aware of that. But we got to start somewhere and let the people know that if we want it, if you want to have it, fine. But I don't want it done in restaurants. I don't want to have to, is there secondhand smoke just as bad at grass as it is off anything else, and I don't need it. Thank you.
All right, please. Anyone else?
I'd like to say something. I think my position on marijuana use is everybody's well aware of. My name's Kathy Finney from West Wareham, District 4. I've been a nurse for 50 years. I've seen what this does. I've seen it as the gateway drug that it is. The proponents of it are like big tobacco, only they're big marijuana. They lie and tell you all sorts of facts. I would only urge you to do whatever you possibly can to limit to the smallest amount of establishments allowed. I think, if I'm not mistaken, what happens is the recreational is taxed, but the medical is not. So what will happen is you're going to find people getting medical cards from every fly-by-night, online, whatever, because I do not believe they tax the medical part of it. Also, I don't know if you're aware, I think sometimes people of my age, they tend to think when you talk about marijuana of people smoking a joint. It's moved way beyond there. I don't know if you're aware of butane oil. People who have a medical card are able to produce butane oil in their homes. It's extremely explosive. It's made with this, like a still of piping and gases and everything. I'm not looking forward to seeing that in a development of housing and somebody blowing up the whole neighborhood. The edibles, they will all tell you, oh, well, no, we're not smoking it now, we're using edibles. The edibles, you don't get any effect from them for 45 minutes to an hour. The old marijuana from the 50s and 60s was 2.5% THC. It's now 20-30%. One little gummy bear is 10 milligrams. A child gets a hold of that, eats it, doesn't feel anything because he's not going to for 45 minutes to an hour, eats everything he finds. You know, it's a disgusting industry. I think it's really terrible, and I would urge you to do whatever you can to limit how many can go in, and who's going to monitor all these rules? Who's going to go from shop to shop? When they do have delivery services, and they'll try to use a family member's card, you can't do that by law. You have to deliver it to the specific person. But I just wonder who's watching the hen house once it goes in, you know? Oh, we've got this law, this law. Well, you see when the tobacco go around and do their stings, every single time they catch the stores selling to minors. This is just This is just going to be something that's going to be really, I don't think we'll ever gain in tax money what it's going to cost us. Thank you.
Peter, did you?
I do have some information. On the taxation when it comes to the medicinal. That's also taxed with the establishment that is going into the institutional zone, with which we've already negotiated a host agreement. We actually negotiated that they would pay us a 3.5% local tax. We actually got more out of them than the state law for the retail sale did subsequently allow. So we actually did a little better than the state did, for whatever that's worth.
Not much.
My name is Sarah Smith. I live here in Wareham for most of my life, on and off.
Hold the microphone to your face, please.
Oh, sorry, I've never used a microphone. So I have a question about retail establishments. When you say you're only going to allow 3 in town, does that include dispensaries, social clubs, cafes, coffee shops, like the different types of establishments that they're talking about allowing people to open? Or is that strictly dispensaries?
Strictly retail.
Well,
At a cafe,
retail's many levels. There's many descriptions in their regulation.
I would suggest forming maybe like a marijuana subcommittee so that people who are knowledgeable about this type of stuff, you guys could, consult with them a little bit to get a little more information, because it doesn't seem like you guys know all the facts about the taxing and things like that, which a lot of us don't. We're all learning about it because, Massachusetts has dragged its feet. But I think it would be really helpful if there was some sort of marijuana subcommittee here for people to get information from. Not just anybody is going to be able to walk into a dispensary. You have to be 21 to go into a dispensary or a social club or anything like that in order to go in there. And the social club that just opened in Worcester, it's a BYOC. So they're not providing anything for people. You're bringing your own, and you're going in there and you are ordering coffee and snacks and things like that while you're consuming. They're not giving it out to people. Like, you're not paying $50 and you're going in there and you can smoke all of this marijuana that's out on the table. That's not the way it is. And a medical dispensary is very secure. The door's locked, they have a guard. I would imagine a recreational dispensary is going to be quite similar. So people who are afraid of children getting in or thinking it's okay for them to go in and look around, that's not gonna happen. You can't get in there unless you have a medical card or you're 21. The state has also put regulations on what edibles can look like. You can't make gummy bears. We're not gonna be allowed to make gummy bears and sell packages of gummy bears. They cannot be child-friendly. The packaging cannot be child-friendly. The signs that go up outside of establishments, they can't scream hey, you can get marijuana here. Hey, come smoke a joint while you drink your coffee. It can't be like that. You're not allowed to advertise. So people would have to know that that's your place. You can't put an ad in the newspaper or put an ad on Facebook that you're allowed to come do these things at this place. It's very discreet. And it's not, in my opinion, any more harmful than alcohol, and there are so many bars and liquor stores in this town, and people are really concerned about a marijuana dispensary. I mean, somebody left a 40-ounce beer on the side of my yard. I have 2 children. The cover was off of it. One of my children could have gone over there and drank that because I live right down the street from a liquor store, and they're allowed to just do that. So my child could have had access to that. I'm allowed to bring my children into the liquor store. I'm not allowed to bring them into a dispensary. So, if people think that someone's going to be bringing their child in there and they're going to grab something off the shelf and eat it by accident and nobody's going to know what happened, it's just not the case, because you're not going to be allowed to bring the children in there. So I think there's a lot of misconceptions about recreational marijuana among a lot of people, and it would be very beneficial if people could see the bigger picture of what the state's really going to allow and what they're not going to allow.
Please, hold the applause.
The only thing I have to add to that is I've been to several symposiums and whatnot, and in fact, they do have candy that looks exactly, except for a word or two, like what you would buy in the candy store. And they do have gummy bears, and I've seen them in person. Now, whether that's what...
It's illegal.
All right.
At the time, this is what was available. Whether they've changed, I don't know. But I don't worry about children going into the actual shop. I worry about parents bringing it home and not securing it, because believe me, in 50 years, I've seen what isn't secured and what kids get a hold of in a home.
I think the gentleman on the aisle was,
I'll make it real quick, just want to clarify. Again, my name's Jim Manise. I want a clarification on where the institutional district is.
You're in it.
yeah, it basically goes from the area around Toby Hospital up this way and encompasses the schools, the town hall.
So I don't know if you want to,
Down to Main Street,
Yeah.
at the hospital entrance.
right. I don't know if it's a great idea to have a retail marijuana establishment for non-medical purposes in the institutional district. I think it brings a different flow of traffic. I think you'd be better off keeping it out of there.
Unfortunately,
you.
by state
Thank you.
regulation, we're not allowed to restrict.
Right now, that is the only place that medicinal marijuana is allowed.
So you have to allow
And they,
retail there too?
per the state regulation, they, if they so choose, can take in retail. They can get the recreational license.
I just don't think it's a good idea to have that foot traffic in there. I think it's a different type of traffic. My perspective. Thank you.
On the previous testimony, the packaging is explicitly prohibited from using bright colors, such as colors that are neon, having any semblance to an existing branded consumer product, including food, beverages that do not contain marijuana, featuring cartoons, featuring a design brand name or that resembles a non-cannabis consumer product of any type, featuring symbols or celebrities that are commonly used to market products to minors, featuring images of minors, featuring words that refer to products that are commonly associated with markets with minors or marketed by minors.
That's a change from the...
We are aware that these products exist, and anybody that thinks they're going to disappear when everything is legal has been smoking too much.
Thank you.
That's not what I meant. What I meant is that you won't.
It won't be in the establishment.
Buy them on the shelf in the dispensary.
Correct.
You will not be able to buy like Harry Bo that somebody changed to like Harry Pot and it's like a bear. Like that's not going to be allowed. Yes, people will make them illegally, but there's nothing anybody can ever do about that. People make them illegally right now. People have been making them illegally for years, you know? There's nothing you can do about the people who are going to make them illegally. And I just want to touch on the oils. People do make those oils in their houses. That's illegal. It is not legal for you to be doing that at your house. People illegally make alcohol all the time at home in their basement. So once again, there's nothing you can do about the people who are going to do things illegally. They're not supposed to do it. You're supposed to do it in a controlled, safe environment. And to base decisions about what you're going to allow into town and where you're going to put them off of things that people are doing illegally isn't good judgment, because that's always going to be there.
Yeah, I'm sorry, do you have a preference on where the establishments would be located in town?
I think the medical should definitely stay down this end, because those are medical patients. Those are people with cancer. It's not a different type of crowd. Those are people who have cancer. Those are people who have Crohn's disease. Those are veterans with PTSD or injuries from war. They're finding that it's working very well with victims of TBIs, you know? So to say that a different type of person's gonna come into a medical dispensary is different. I think the medical dispensary should definitely be where the medical stuff is, and I don't think they should be next to schools and things like that, but I don't really feel like it should be regulated where, you know, like a cafe or something like that goes in. As far as a big, large dispensary, I wouldn't want it to be like an eyesore or something like that. I guess I probably wouldn't want it to be like right next to my house either, even though I am okay with, it's probably loud, lots of different traffic, stuff like that.
But, Mr. Chairman, so the medical license has been issued as first refusal on the recreational use, and it can be on the same footprint? So in the same building adjacent to Toby Hospital can be both recreation and medical?
I don't think physically, I don't think they could function together because the security and the products are different. The security involved in medicinal, the way it was described to me, is, I don't know how to, it's really strict, even
our
so far
understanding of the
as
state-
the monies have to be kept separate from,
I don't even think the state really knows what they're gonna do if a medical dispensary decides to switch over to recreational. They don't even have any idea about these things. They're literally flying by the seat of their pants with this.
I think to have both of them in the same building, you're gonna probably need 10,000 square feet.
Thank you.
Good evening, guys. Thanks so much. My name is Brian Cusick. I'm co-founder and COO of T-Bear Incorporated, a prospective licensee here in the state of Massachusetts and a lifelong Massachusetts resident. I think it's really great the town of Wareham's got out ahead of this and is putting drafting zoning in place. To speak to the way this is written, I would hope and advise the town takes under consideration the buffer zone language in regards to where children commonly congregate. I know it's been a massive issue for siting on the RMD side of things, and maybe take a look at the way the CCC's language in regards to K through 12. Again, you have mentioned here to retail licensing. I think that's smart. There's a big distinction in these types of businesses. Licensing for manufacturing and processing and cultivation are not public. They're not a public entity. You won't have consumers coming and going from those facilities. They provide good full-time jobs to the community as well as tax revenue, and you won't even know they're there. They're just nameless buildings. Like you said, they will take up a lot of your industrial space, but these are good full-time jobs for the community residents here. So I think the way you have it structured with the restrictions on retail and not the other types of licensing definitely speaks to the industry and how you should see it unfold here.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Philip Silverman. I'm here for Zephias Wellness Inc., which is also a marijuana company that's interested in potentially locating here. I just want to commend you. I think your bylaw is actually very good. It's the type of bylaw that we see that's had success out in Colorado. I did want to point out to you that Colorado's experience has been pretty good in terms of people being concerned about children getting involved. The teen use has gone down in Colorado, and the suspicion is that the reason is because you're regulating this in a legal manner and you're eliminating the black market. As reports, as much as 50 to 75% of the black market's been eliminated in Colorado. So it's been a success in that regard. I just wanted to make one point about, there's been talk about these cafes and such. That's a completely different process than what we're talking about. You'd actually have to get a group of citizens, 10% of the registered voters from the last election would have to sign a petition in order to just get a town vote to come forward to be able to have that. So that's really not something that's happened here yet. My company's not thinking of doing anything like that. So I just think that needs to sort of be taken out of the equation because it's really not relevant to what we're discussing today. So thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Chairman, that is one of the licensing uses though, right? A smoking room? Smoking club, like a cigar club? It's one of the accepted uses.
They've got so many uses identified, and I don't know what level of licensing goes where, because, or even if it's a local license option, do they control that like they control the package stores and pouring licenses, or is this all gonna be managed by the state? I mean, that's part of the reason I think it's important we get ahead of this and lock this down, and then once the dust settles, if you need to make adjustments in your zoning districts, you can.
Just briefly, as far as the approval process goes, it's going to be a two-layered approval. There's a state license that issues, but there is local approval of the host agreement. So it's going to be very similar to alcohol. The Board of Selectmen is the alcohol licensing authority for the town of Wareham, but the State Alcoholic Beverage Control Commission has to sign off on each license we issue. So it's actually not valid after our vote until the state returns the paperwork stamped.
There will also be a special permit required for the use as well.
You're not going to have drive-throughs, Howard.
What?
No drive-throughs.
Don't need him, you'll have delivery.
We'll forget that. Howard Smith, Precinct 4, West Wareham. You all seem to be dealing with one end of the marijuana, the growing, selling, and so forth and so on. This afternoon, I had a very interesting conversation with a good friend of mine who happens to be in the insurance industry. And one of the things that he brought to my attention, which is kind of down the road, he said the insurance industry is starting to have a problem because people are coming in with medical cards. Now, they have to produce, they have to notify their insurance company that they have a medical card and what it's used for. They also have to list their physical condition that is requiring that. Therefore, on the other side, when they start running into insurance claims, it's a whole different industry. They can deny many, many claims because if the people don't make this claim forward, they claim it later, it's a whole different ballgame. So this is something we, not just here, everybody needs to consider in the future. It's going to be affecting all of us in that respect also.
Malcolm Finney, Precinct 4. One of my big problems with this is that I hear people comparing this to alcohol. And because we allow alcohol and so forth, then I guess it's okay. We should allow marijuana. Alcohol is a drug. It's a terrible drug. Our society pays a huge amount of money for alcohol-related problems. I know I don't like driving on the highway knowing that a good percentage of people out there are somewhat buzzed on alcohol. Now they're going to be buzzed on marijuana too. This bothers me. We also have, in our society, have been spending a lot of money on trying to control this alcohol problem, but also smoking of cigarettes, because we know of the health problems there. If smoking cigarettes is not good for you and not good for your health, and we are spending lots and lots of money to try to convince people not to do this, I can't see where we should be allowing the marijuana situation. I know it's not all smoked, but it will be a lot of it smoked. And it's secondhand smoke is worse than cigarette smoke. Having said that, my recommendation is very easy to figure out. The most restrictive we can be on having marijuana in Wareham, that's what I'm going to support. What they're proposing right now is just a gateway for more and bigger industry. The second people find out they can make money on it, and they've already found that out, and that's why you have big business now supporting it, it's just going to get bigger and bigger, and they're going to come to the town, they're going to want more and bigger establishments and so forth and so on. So again, I support the most restrictive measures we can make on this marijuana. I don't want to have to see that we're going to have to be spending money on marijuana-related problems, on education, and so forth, to address the marijuana issue. So that's my...
Thanks. Yes, Mrs. Slavin.
Good evening again, Sandy Slavin. Where east of Glen Charlie will this be all the way down to Buzzards Bay? It could be placed in on either sides of 6 and 28? I'm just trying to visually identify the area we're talking about.
That is the commercial strip.
So,
It varies from,
but it's,
500 feet back from Cranberry Highway to 200 feet.
so, but if I say, but if it doesn't have to start at Glen Charlie, it could go further west, correct?
Mm-hmm.
But you've chosen to use Glen Charlie as a cut point, from Glen Charlie all the way down Buzzards Bay, on either side of 6 and 28, to a variety of feet depth. Is that a good way to put it? I'm just trying to picture in my mind where all 3 stores could be placed.
They have to be 1,500 feet apart.
All right, okay, so they're 2,000 feet apart. I can put one where Handy used to be and further down the street. Okay, I'm just trying to visualize it where it could be. All 3 could be in that section, correct? No other location other than by Toby.
No, we also added industrial, which is,
So the industrial park being what, we have 3 industrial parks in town?
I believe it's 2.
Two.
2?
There are 3, actually.
There's 3.
But they're all,
Pretty
All in the
full,
same
aren't they?
district.
I thought there was space in one of them.
There's space available in the Patterson's Brook,
Yeah.
in the private industrial subdivision across the street from Patterson Brook. There may be vacant space within the,
So there's one down by Factory,
Road.
by Factory 5, and the other by the Crouton Place. Those are 2 industrial park areas.
they're contiguous, yeah.
Sorry, Cox Candy, that's what I was looking. And then the other one's down a little bit where the big trailer trucks used to park, right? Okay, I'm just trying to figure where we're going to put these suckers, so, thank you.
Is there?
Brian Edgefield, Precinct 4. Along the same lines, I know I saw a map where there were some proposed zoning changes, if I'm not mistaken. Part of the new master plan, maybe? No? Thought I read a newspaper article. Right now, the industrial zone actually starts along Main Street, just underneath 25, where Redmond Hall is, extends all behind the shopping center, and goes up Toby Road, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
correct. We also have Deacon School there.
Right.
500 feet from that takes out that piece of industrial land.
Yeah, 500 feet's not much.
Well,
From
it's
the
enough.
school itself.
From the school edge of the school property.
Yeah.
which
But
is
right now,
enough to take out
the
that-
school is there, but there's talk of removing it.
Right.
Wasn't that was changed, the
Well, that's what I'm asking.
Wareham Crossing,
It changed to commercial
they
strip. if I'm not
changed that to
mistaken.
commercial general,
Okay. I just
to
wanted to
reflect
clarify.
what was there. On the other side, where Walmart is, that's industrial.
Okay.
Yes.
Nancy McHale, I have a question again. Sorry about this. We're talking now strictly about the 3 retail licenses. What thought or what's going to happen with the cultivators, the folks who are making edibles, all of those sorts of ancillary businesses? What sort of planning is going into those licenses? Are there going to be licenses? How are those going to be dealt with?
Those will be licensed, those will also fit under the same requirements, restrictions of the retail in the zoning districts and the locations.
Okay, so then there's 3 retailers who are selling the stuff, 12 people who are growing it, and 16 people who are making edibles, all in those same areas.
That is a
And I'm
possibility.
just trying to figure out if there are any kind of proposed limits on the ancillary businesses.
No, the only limits are what the state regulations are requiring
In the retail,
the market would bear.
what the market will bear. That just sounds like a whole lot of pot growing in every empty steel building around.
There was just a vote in, Andover, was it? Where they had a very large,
A 1 million square foot.
million square foot building that was proposed, and that went to a town meeting vote, correct?
Correct.
Is that part of the licensing process for that, or is that a local bylaw?
That was the local bylaw, and they denied it. But they voted against the legalization of marijuana in the state referendum, so they were allowed to ban
Okay.
uses, and the town of Wareham voted for, so we are not allowed to ban the uses.
I see the map.
Thank you.
Evening. Rob Martinez from East Falmouth. I really appreciate you guys getting some guidelines for the town. That really, I think, is a good starting point. Get some more control as far as the townways. As much as I love Wareham, I've moved here in 2012, and I've been here since then. I don't think we're going to experience this green rush of having these grow houses in Wareham. Our industrial zoning area is not as barren as a city like New Bedford or Fall River, and the rent is a lot more expensive in Wareham than it is in Fall River or New Bedford. A lot of the grows are probably going to take place where they have the empty mills that are around that are being unused. So I don't think we have to worry about that. The three retail spots, I think, are a great limit on the amount that we should have for a good starting point. I do worry personally that I think Wareham might turn into a stopping point for everyone going to the Cape on a Friday, and it could increase traffic. Because if you look at the towns that have banned it, it's Wareham is the green one, and then everything else is red all the way to Orleans, I believe, unless you go out to the island. However, the benefit to that is it will bring a lot more business and people to the town that aren't there just to buy marijuana. They'll be there to buy foods, go to the stores. There's a lot of empty stores that we have on Main Street that could use a tenant who's selling their wares, whatever, not marijuana, clothes or whatever. It'd also help with the construction in this town, where we'll have plenty of construction workers who may not have work during the winter, but they'll be helping building out maybe a warehouse here or building a storefront there, which would be useful to it. It's not just the people who are selling the pot that are making the money. It's the people who are doing the things that aren't directly connected to the pot, which are making a lot of money. And I think it's really useful, and I think we should actually vote this forward and have it go through, because it'd be a great amount of resource, not just for weed money to Wareham, but to all the other businesses, and really help reestablish this town and bring more money to it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Last speaker kind of pushed my buttons. And I know that a lot of people don't agree with me on this. But the last thing that Wareham needs is more, as he puts it, build out. As most of you know, I'm a environmentalist. I have taught environmental science for 35 years. And what's happening to Wareham is a destruction of our natural resources, wholesale. Every time somebody comes in and says they're going to build something that's going to make some money, we just fold over backwards, we let them go in, destroy the whole habitat. And each one is considered separately. So one guy does it here, somebody does it here, and so forth and so on. And then the result is we're losing much of our natural habitats. On that line, I don't encourage a business which is going to grow out and start occupying more and more and more of our forests and other natural areas. I know that's not the consideration here, but for me, it is a very big consideration, and the town of Wareham should recognize that their natural resources are one of the greatest assets they have, and we can't just wholesale sell this thing out to everybody that comes along who wants a bigger and bigger business coming into Wareham, because it's going to bring us people. We don't need more people going through Wareham. it's going to bring us money, and so forth and so on. And all the time, we are destroying our habitats and our natural resources.
Like solar panels.
Yeah.
Anything further? I guess not. The board?
I would like to just make a comment, actually I have two comments. I've heard the comparison comparing marijuana use to alcohol for years. Color of my hair can tell you how long I've heard this. And young people, of course, will get access to alcohol. They'll take it out of their parents' refrigerator or their parents' liquor cabinet. They'll have some and it'll be done. I have not seen in my life a young person whose brain has been destroyed by alcohol. There may be, but I, in my own experience, have not. But in my life, I have seen young people, very specifically 4 in number, children of good friends, good families, whose life are useless today. They range in age from early 20s to 50, useless. And it all started with consumption of marijuana. And then what it led to. I'm no expert, so I could be way off the mark. But I'm suspicious of this comparison of marijuana use to alcohol. And I don't see too many people, well, if we see someone at 10 o'clock in the morning having had too much to drink, they have a problem and they're being dealt with, hopefully. And they're an alcoholic, and they are directed towards treatment. But how many children have I seen, early teens, stoned in the middle of the day? And just go about their, And then, as I say, very specifically, I've seen lives destroyed by the continuing use of marijuana, which I've not seen with stealing a beer or a scotch here and there. The other point that I'm very puzzled by, and nothing for this group here to deal with, but I'm feeling uncomfortable being on the board, acting on a decision which is contrary to the federal law. This puzzles me, and I don't understand why, Mr. Chairman, I don't know if I'm off base completely, but can our council advise us? Does the community have to be forced to violate federal law?
It's a valid point.
It's called supremacy clause, and it's...
I believe there's a grower out in Oregon that's serving federal time because he had over 3 acres growing, yeah.
But in a way, we asked for it.
So,
We
I mean,
voted for it, right? 53% of us wanted it, so now we're paying the piper.
Separation of federal government and state.
Tom Gleason, it's all fine to make, the restrictions on the marijuana, but, you're right. Marijuana is a Schedule I substance according to the DEA at this point, and it's illegal. Now, the federal government, admittedly has kind of turned a blind eye to this, and they haven't prosecuted. But sooner or later, there's no way that you can guarantee that they won't, okay? And if they change their mind, what liability do we have? What liability does anybody have in this situation? Has the town council forwarded an opinion?
Do you care to answer that?
Well, under any viewing of how this country's government is set up, we're on the bottom. That's indisputable. It's true that under federal law, marijuana is illegal. It's also true that they've chosen as of the past 5 or 6 years since states started legalizing it, to do nothing about it. We have an Attorney General in Washington who seems to want to go back to the 1950s, but I don't think he's going to get much traction with the local U.S. attorneys, and that's where he's left the issue. The local U.S. attorney from Massachusetts issued a statement saying that he wasn't going to endorse it, and then he said no more. To me, that was pretty much his way of saying, don't expect me to bless this industry, but if he had intended to do anything to stop it, that was his opportunity to do so, and he failed to do so. We are bound under state law to allow these facilities. We have no choice. I don't think anybody in the town wants to go to federal district court and sue this Commonwealth of Massachusetts to stop this from happening. I don't think the court would get involved. They'd probably say it was a political question of some sort. We're the subordinates here. People need to understand that. We can't just, decide that we don't like this because it's illegal under federal law. But remember, 56% of the people in this town voted for this. That was 3% higher than the state average. That's what the people voted for. That's what they wanted. And the state law was also voted into effect, and this is what we have to deal with.
I'm sorry, Mr. Selectman. We do have the option to put it to revote, though.
We do, but in the meantime, you could have 25 establishments show up here and be legal, and then you'd have a hell of a hard time doing away with them with a revote.
Because of the timing, right? Because our town meeting is not till the 23rd. The
Right.
timing is April 1st.
Right.
On the state. So it's a timing issue with a revote.
And again, this bylaw was crafted to be as restrictive as we could under the provision that says you can license no fewer than 20% of your liquor establishments. I've got to tell you, we waited for 2 months on a clear answer as to whether the state wanted to round up or down. That's how screwed up they were. At first, they were telling us round down, and I said to myself, who the hell rounds down? 2.6? I mean, you learn in second grade, that's 3. The state finally realized that, and so that's what happened. But that's the level of uncertainty we've been dealing with all along here. And so, to answer Emmanuel's question here, it's quite possible that some future federal administration could shut this all down. I don't think that they are going to hold 6 million people in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts liable for it, however. I don't think they're going to be throwing selectmen or planning board members in jail for letting this happen. I think they would just issue orders to cease the industry if it comes to that. So that's my best view of it. It's the one that our town council agrees with as well.
I think if we were to take the stand that it's against federal law and we're not going to do anything, we'd be inundated, number one, and we'd be treated like the guy that thought income tax was illegal and didn't pay it. We'd end up in the same boat. So I think what we've come up with is a good compromise in a bad situation. I see the use of this on a weekly basis in people's homes where there's children, and I'm disgusted by it, but we got to make the best of a bad situation. Anyway, do you want to discuss modifying some of these areas, or what's the... At this point, would the modifications have to be done? It's just, if it's in this, oh, this is a special town meeting,
Yes, that's right. This is a special town meeting in March.
which the warrant closes today, probably?
Tomorrow.
Oh.
Procedurally, you may be able to make some minor changes to this. I would, however, consult with Madam Moderator to make sure you don't go too far so that they're outside the scope of the article. So you can play around with a little, not too much.
Well, I know there was one suggestion that the commercial strip be extended. I'm thinking that area, that extension would put it in a largely residential area.
Depending on the final version of your article tonight and what you submit for closure tomorrow, when it comes to town meeting, you can only decrease any changes. You will not be able to increase any changes. You can always diminish. You can't go above. And while I have just a minute, I want to make it very clear so that the public hears that the night of town meeting, the discussion will be on the article itself. So the discussion will only be, do you accept the state law or do you not accept the state law? And then on the second article, do you accept what's in that article or do you not? There will not be discussions on whether you approve medical marijuana or other things that come in. The discussion will only be on the merits of those two articles.
Correct.
Good evening. My name's Sean McCoy, born and raised in Wareham. And I just wanted to know, it says east of Glen Charlie Road, Depot Street, and Great Neck Road. Would that include those roads also?
Those roads would be the boundary.
So if you
the
were on
western
the
boundary.
west side of Great Neck Road, for instance, and you were otherwise in the zone, would that be okay?
If you're on the west side of Great Neck Road, you're outside of the allowed boundary.
Depot Street.
You're outside of the allowed boundary. It's only that east of those roads.
Well, there are businesses on Depot Street, aren't there?
There's commercial zoning.
The,
I'm proposing that you just say Depot Street and east, that's all. Instead of east of.
let's see, the commercial strip.
So Depot coming down here,
Yeah.
Great Neck. So it covers these.
Yeah, we have no choice.
Yeah, most of Depot Street is not commercial strip. There is some around the intersection of Depot and Minot, and
I'm asking that those be included.
but to word it the way you did, if, you know, that would not affect it.
So could I propose that change, please? Thank you.
I think probably that description should be a little better. Because if you say east of Depot, and if you use those, I think you're thinking the section between, but.
Yeah, only if it's in the CS district.
Yeah.
So is it anything strip commercial?
Anything stripped commercial east of Glen Charlie, Depot, and
So when did they?
Great Neck Road is the way it's written now.
So when did they decide to exclude the other strip commercial properties all on Cranberry Highway? 'Cause you keep saying east of Depot, east of Depot. So what about all the other strip commercial property that's on Cranberry Highway? They're excluded? You know, when did we vote on excluding those properties or not including them in your language you guys keep saying? Because I just keep hearing east of Depot, east of Glen Charlie, but everybody else is getting excluded that in those 2 miles that are west of Glen Charlie. It's definitely not fair.
Just trying to see what, I know we did some,
When all the modifications came in, they stopped the general commercial, they changed it in Mill Pond Diner, and they kept strip commercial, and it still runs down Cranberry Highway. To exclude that, sections of properties would be terrible.
Peter wants.
One thing for the board to consider is that there are no fewer than 6 other areas of stripped commercial land in Wareham. One is all the way up at the West Wareham border, near the courthouse. There is another stretch just west of the industrial zone. There's a stretch east of the industrial zone. There's a stretch, I'm trying to look at my phone here, along the Weweantic, along Marion Road near the Weweantic, crossing into Marion. There's another commercial strip zone that runs basically Wareham Plaza and out in the plaza, what we used to call Wareham Plaza back in the day, Shaw's, that neck of the woods. And then you've got the 2 little parcels in East Wareham around Depot Street, in addition to the remaining long contiguous section that runs from roughly Robertson's down to the Buzzards Bay line. So part of the thinking in coming up with that designation in that portion of the strip commercial was, again, to ensure the geographic spread of these places. If you had the whole strip commercial in there, you could conceivably have one in the industrial park and then one up by the courthouse, which would defeat that goal.
Well, the strip that I'm referencing is connected to the stuff on Cranberry Highway, only divided by what Glen Charlie Road is what they're using as a point of reference. It's not like it's interrupted with any other zones that go down Cranberry Highway.
If you'd like to address, please come forward.
The area that I'm particularly talking about is running from Robinson's down Cranberry Highway. It's not interrupted by any residential or any other zone. It's all strict commercial. And they kind of already changed it, and they let Wareham Plaza go in, the new Wareham Plaza. And it seemed like they changed it all in a quick, in a hurry. There was a big uproar in town when they changed all that to general commercial. Some people were very unhappy that their businesses got automatically changed and kind of downgraded, because strip commercial is kind of the most valuable land going down Cranberry Highway right now. And they changed it to general commercial. And then just to say that now that's only going from Glen Charlie down would be a great loss to everybody in that zone.
Well, that section,
And even in that section, it's more wide open in that section than Cranberry Highway that's already all congested going down Cranberry Highway.
but it's also largely residential along there.
There's businesses, it's residential on Cranberry, you got trailer parks all up Cranberry Highway. Those are all residential too. There's more residents in those trailer parks than there is houses going down Cranberry Highway. There's way more businesses going up Cranberry Highway from Robinson's down to Buzzards Bay. It's definitely more businesses than houses, guaranteed. Thank you.
Anything further from the board? From any other comments? Discussion? If there's nothing further, I'd look for a motion to close the public hearing.
To close the public hearing?
Second?
Is that a second? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Thank you, everyone, for your input. And, be ready on March 12th, where you need your attendance. Well, there may be, we got to talk about this, the use of the retail. I think our intent was to have all uses there for now.
Of course, they're looking at more interest.
I don't know. When we did the medical,
Concrete Neck Road.
it came out that all the uses, even cultivation, everything went in industrial. industrial, I mean institutional. I don't know if we can treat, I don't know if we can treat everything that way.
It's accepted. Yeah.
The discussion?
This
Yeah.
line here.
On commercial strip, we're talking this way, yeah.
Institutional
Industrial
zone.
is the purple. Yeah.
Right. Sure.
No, well, we're gonna have a
This is my
discussion on it.
experience. You know, I thank
We
you for
just
your thought.
eliminated the, I think the public input was done, so we closed that part of the hearing, then we could discuss amongst ourselves if we wanna make any changes and then vote. Yeah, read the paper. No, we,
There's a gentleman here.
yeah, we still have more work to do.
He was here
You know,
2 weeks ago.
our agenda isn't,
Represents a company that does medical marijuana. Medical is really, really restricted. And I think medical is a good thing. They have 3 grow houses or warehouses they're going in Fall River. And they're quite concerned to see what's going to happen in Wareham. But when they legalize it for recreational use, they just threw everything in a tailspin, and now you get the state involved. As soon as you get the state involved, it
Where are
becomes
you on
big
Depot?
business is looking at making big bucks. That's all it is.
Maybe at the corner here? So if it fronts on Depot Street, that would do it. Okay. I get you. All right. Well, this won't be your only opportunity, of course. If it doesn't go your way this time around.
Well, what other opportunities do you have?
The Springtown meeting.
well, that's it, you wouldn't be, you could moderate it, illustrate it, you'd be able to take areas away, but you wouldn't be able to add areas.
So you'd have to do it in other town meetings. So we have a special on March 14th, March 12th. And then there's the annual town meeting and the special town meeting within the annual. So there's three town meetings, 3 warrants this spring.
You can't go and buy pot at a medical facility with a credit card because the banks can't process the money because it's illegal.
Yeah.
Federally, it's illegal.
Yeah, I know.
They're given
It's tough.
they're given the option.
Thank you for your
to
thought.
do it automatically.
I respect, it's my experience.
Yes.
It's my experience. Oh, no, I'm actually, I'm anti-big government, but in this case,
That's a political decision.
Architectural standards,
How was Joey doing?
Yeah.
keep getting a cramp in my leg.
Thank you so much.
All right, good luck.
Wow, excellent.
Cut the
Meeting short, submitted a motion for transmission, submitted fit the strategic plan as well as dimensional guidelines. It will save you a ton of work, but I know it's great.
what is your name?
My name is Kathy.
Thank you for your thoughts.
And this was 2000,
2006. Thank you.
and Angie was the, Anthony was the
It's still
chair.
my experience.
Yeah, she did, I know.
It's a tough one. Marijuana, if you read
I think that make a big
They
difference
gave you
for
a
all
bag
the
of seed.
development, no matter what kind of development it is.
They want to get independent from
Yeah.
the Middle East. That's where we have came from, to make rope and everything else.
Thanks, Claire.
And what was that?
No. I think if this one's a rebuild, it'd be a different outcome. Why were,
I don't think so.
People are getting a little flavor as to what actually happened.
Right.
It'd be another article. If this goes in as is, and you want to expand it, you'd have to have another article.
What happened a long time ago was
That's what these guys are gonna
commercial,
consider.
everything on the right-hand side of the road from Buzzards Bay to Carver was all commercial.
Okay, not a problem. You're getting your civics
Thing
lesson.
is, people got nervous when they went to West Wareham Group and this and that. When the blight was moving up, they said, we gotta put a stop to this. It's gonna look like
All
East
right.
Wareham, all the way up to the Middleborough line.
Mr. Christie's got voted, general commercial.
Right, right. I'm surprised he's not here tonight.
You know, he missed it. I understand.
Okay. On the continued public hearing for Spring Avenue, they've requested a continuance to February 26th.
Do we need a motion to accept that extension?
Do we have a written extension, Ken?
We have an email notice request.
All right. I'd look for a motion to accept the continuance to February 26th.
At 7 o'clock?
Yep.
Yep, that's my motion.
Just FYI, I won't be here on the 26th, so I don't know if that's going to change their plans or
I'll make
not.
a big note, make sure I'm here.
There's also a chance I have to be at a meeting out of town, and I'm gonna try to get back by 7.
You can't go.
So,
Well, we shoot it by ear. If George isn't here, you're not here. John Cronin's not here, we won't have a quorum, we won't do nothing. We'll have to,
I will try to make it, but
Yep.
there's a chance I...
But at this point, we do have to act on the continuance.
Yep. So my motion,
Was there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
aye.
Opposed? Very good. This evening, we voted on the riding stables for favorable action, the non-conforming structures uses, favorable action.
Article 14.
Yeah, drive-throughs.
We had a rough draft on that. Let's work.
I think the thought behind putting it in the villages were,
That's because that's where restaurants are allowed by special permit.
well, and you already have a drive-through in Wareham Village. I can't offhand think of where you could put one in Onset Village, but villages do change, so.
One of the things was in there was trash receptacles.
That is part of the special permit.
Right. Because as they are now, some of the drive-throughs, can't even talk, throughs don't have them.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem is, they generate more trash than anything else. You know, you go in there, you go to Dunkin' Donuts, you buy a coffee, you get your old cup in the car, where do you put it? The guy doesn't have a trash receptacle there, so you throw it out the window. I don't throw it out the window, but some people do. You know, the way that draft is, I think we can almost just about fly with that.
You can do what to it?
We can almost fly with the way it is, the way Ken got it presented,
Option 1 or option 2?
option 2.
Option 2 is by special permit in the general commercial district.
Does that eliminate Walmart? No, that includes Walmart.
Yes, that would include the Walmart property.
On number 4, no direct entrance or egress onto or from a state highway.
Well, it is kind of limited because there's, we've got 2 mini malls there, basically. They're gonna come in off their parking lot to get in there.
Well, I'm just trying to think of interpretation.
Then we bounce back to the state dictates whether they got a curb cut on 28. So if they got a curb cut, if I had a piece of property, the way it's written, say I went to the old Wareham Pharmacy. I have 2 curb cuts on that property. I want to put a McDonald's in there. That's my primary access to get into my property. Correct?
Well, that's what I was just thinking. It says no direct access. Take the Walmart corner.
Yeah.
And Mike's prime rib wants to go in the corner.
Yeah.
The use does not have a direct access, but the site does.
Yeah, but my drive-through's gonna come in off the parking lot or one of the access roads within, so it's internal. But if I went across the street of a Wareham Pharmacy, I got a problem.
Or if you went to the corner of Tow Road. If you're facing Cranberry Highway with driveways, you can't do it. If you come in off of Tow Road, you can.
Depends how you want to interpret it, right?
You can't get to Tow Road from the back of Wareham Pharmacy, can you?
No.
Go that far back? No.
No, I'm just trying to,
You're playing devil's advocate.
I'm trying to see how this could be misinterpreted, you know?
Yeah. I keep thinking of, man, I eat too much fast food. I think it's Seekonk. They put a Chick-fil-A there. And they put a go-kart place there. Seekonk?
Where you get off,
Swansea.
where you get off of 95, going to Seekonk,
Or is that
there's
Swansea?
a McDonald's on the right to get into there, or Wendy's or one of them
Yeah.
places. You have to go into that mall, the same thing, to get into there. And of course, you gotta go back into the mall parking lot, into the stream to get back out.
Have we described that in the criteria for the special permit? I guess is what I'm asking.
Enough space for vehicles to enter and queue. Well, we'd have to be pretty abstract on the queuing of the cars within the property. You know, if they were having a special 2-for-1 ribs, they might be backed out to 28.
Are there any large, busy roads that are not state highways?
Well, I guess,
Toby Road's becoming one.
what if you enter onto the state highway with a signal light only? Then the state's gonna restrict you from putting up the signal light. So if your McDonald's was valuable enough to say, I'll put up the light, but the state's gonna say, too high a frequency.
Doesn't
Cranberry
meet
Highway.
traffic warrant.
Yeah, does it warrant it? Sure.
What do we have on the table right now? Still the Wendy's?
Yeah.
Is that the only one?
Where was that standing, Ken, with Board of Appeals?
That's being held, continued until after town meeting.
To see what we do here, right?
Yeah, see what town meeting does.
So they put the ball in our court. Thanks.
Put it in town meeting's hands.
What happened to the drive-through on the Sondon-Terre where the old Friendlies was? Is that,
That's been taken out of consideration.
by Sondon-Terre, or they don't want a drive-through in
Are
there?
you talking on the new location?
Yeah, where the old Friendlies was in.
I don't think
Stop and
Friendly's
Shop
had a
was.
drive-through.
No, they didn't, but I can't imagine a bank without a drive-through. They haven't requested a drive-through for that bank?
As far as I know, they haven't been before the Board of Appeals yet.
Can you use the mic, Ken?
But in any case, that would discharge the same way
They
that
haven't been before the Board of Appeals yet.
Papagino's does. Push you into Walmart's internal road system.
Banking drive-throughs are treated differently in the use chart. Non-fast food drive-throughs are treated differently.
Banking drive-throughs, it's just restaurant drive-throughs that are not allowed.
So this is the only thing up for consideration is restaurant drive-throughs.
Correct.
Well, the plaza in East Wareham is commercial strip.
Excuse me. Yes.
Come on, Ken, you gonna show us the movie or not?
It's not working for me for some reason. I'm not the IT guy I thought I was.
Press the question button.
I think if we think of the problems in East Wareham, it's a discharge out on the state road, Cranberry Highway. We, to stay consistent with what we've been saying, not to create that same circumstance again.
The reason the major reconstruction of that section of East Wareham, the primary reason is because of the number of lane crossing incidents and in particular fatalities, so we don't want to.
Yeah, I don't see any future in West Wareham without widening that road system there towards Wareham Pharmacy. I mean, you'll never get maximum use out of those properties.
Mm-hmm.
You're down to one lane right there, so we're back to crossing 4 lanes, pulling out. They'll have to come up with some type of resolution. You have to put a utility road in there, the backside of those properties, if you want drive-throughs. There's no. What happens after Wareham Pharmacy? At Joe Barbosa's place?
There's a mobile home park and then that, yeah. I think then you're out of that zoning district. You're into,
Is the mobile home park entrance road a private road?
Yes.
yeah.
At one time, it was proposed to put their entrance to come in through the industrial park off Toll Road, and we couldn't come to agreement, or they couldn't come to agreements, because coming out of the one after Wareham Pharmacies is pretty treacherous coming out onto 28. That's a bad one. There's been quite a few wrecks. Senior citizens have a hard time, getting into the mainstream of traffic.
I think the light timing and stuff has actually helped, but that's just me.
But aren't items 1 and 4 giving us the control we seek? And just not allow curb cuts onto the highways, onto a state highway. I keep thinking of an analogous situation going into Wareham Crossing, right? Traffic lights. I could see a fast food restaurant, let's say where J.C. Penney is here you're coming in off the highway, controlled by traffic light. It's internal circulation, and if the available space is sufficient to accommodate queuing and so on, I think we would have to see it. I would say item 1 and 4 give us good control, and then it depends on what we can discern on the actual site plan. And maybe we have to come up with.
That site's conducive to that type of situation, but we go across the street over the Wareham Plaza property, it's not conducive to that, because the property's.
Then you can't do it.
Which property?
Wareham Pharmacy, Bill Strong Buick.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
it's-
not without some
But it's-
being part of a larger development.
Right, yeah, it's part of a master plan. I mean, and look, if the site that is there that you're referring to cannot accommodate this, the landowner can expand the property. But the concern that's been voiced for many meetings now is valid. You cannot continue to allow the situation at Cranberry Highway, where every 20 feet, there's another curb cut and another curb cut.
If I'm not wrong, Ken, help me in this one. If I had a piece of property on 28, and I have an existing curb cut on 28 that was issued by the state, we can't go and tell them they can't use it. The state overrides whatever we say for them to get on and off that property.
On a state highway, yeah.
Yes. That's what here we go again, the state's involved.
But if we give them a site plan that shows no egress, I think they'll support that. You know, because normally, before MassDOT makes a ruling, they wait to see what we do. And then they submit the approved plan to MassDOT.
A good example, we'll get back to East Wareham, when Chili's went in. There's an entrance and exit off of 28. And I believe there was a sign there when they first opened. There was a sign, right turns only. If you come out of that road, you can come in there, take a right into the property, going to Chili's. If you come out that same road, right only. I think it was there probably 2 weeks, the sign got mowed down.
Well,
I've seen people cut right across.
There's supposed to be a sign,
Left and go out.
there's supposed to be a sign when you're coming back this way that says, "Do not enter."
Right.
But they're using the one for the bypass and saying that that's the same signs,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
that's why they're getting an island.
We got one over the new plaza down there by Aldi's. That's only a lined island out there. You know, you come out there, entrance and exit.
Yeah, it's not stopping people from cutting across.
No.
But
Human nature is shortest point between 2 points is straight.
But the design of the entrance kind of tells you you're doing something wrong.
Sure, you just go fast, that's all. Just step on and keep on going.
I mean,
I went in there the other day just to purposely to see, and I took a right because my wife was with me, but she says, "You can't go that way." I says, "Well, what's stopping me? There's no curb there."
well, I wanted to continue full width layout all the way down to the lights, and they had 101 reasons why they couldn't do it. So do you think, number one, do you want to go with an option, and do you think the special permit criteria is bulletproof?
George, could you repeat the question? I'm hard of hearing.
Do you want to suggest an option for drive-throughs, either one or two? And if so, do you think the criteria for the special permit is restrictive enough to do what we want to do?
My inclination is to allow it where restaurants are allowed, but with these controls. I think the board, I think item 1, 4, and 2 give us control. Maybe we have time to work on this, Ken, or is this going in tomorrow?
Is this part of the special permit?
This could be part of the
Special town meeting?
special within the annual.
The special within the annual?
Yeah, that could be, if you want to take more time.
How about if we took these guys and moved them up and put them in option 1?
That's what I meant. I meant they go here.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh, sure. Yeah, for either option.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would venture, I would recommend 1, 2, 3, and 4 apply to option 1, which is intended, yeah.
I would suggest, even though it's put in this way, I would recommend against having drive-throughs in the Wareham Village and the Onset Village districts.
Why?
Because they're not conducive to pedestrian traffic.
Well, we already have one in the Wareham Village.
Yeah,
You're referring to the bank?
the
Dunkin' Donuts.
Dunkin' Donuts beside the CVS.
Oh, yeah. Maybe you could argue that they discharge
That
the
doesn't
parking
meet-
lot.
But it doesn't meet the requirement of number 4.
So for
Well,
no,
there is no direct entrance to a state highway.
That's what I asked before. Okay, can we expand on that definition of, or main thoroughfare,
Um,
I mean, it can work if we just control we can make it work.
I mean, so, I mean, could you limit it in the way to say that the egress traffic cannot be permitted to cross more than one lane?
and I think you're pushing the envelope now. Who's gonna, you know? If you tell them they can take one, they're gonna take as many as they want. You can't control that. I think it has to be controlled on the site. If it doesn't, like Emmanuel says, if they can't make it work on the site,
Yeah,
It's not gonna work.
piece of property in the village are you going to be able to
Well,
circulate
it'll be
around
a
onto the
problem.
site? I mean, you can put it there, I don't think you're gonna find a piece of property with any value if it's not on the main thoroughway.
In terms of design, it'd be too hard to, because of the size of the lots, to create something,
Yeah.
to have a drive-through and meet the criteria.
I mean, so, I mean, based on our knowledge of the town, why should, do we really want to consume energy in a possibility that doesn't exist for someone to come argue? So you're saying the only way to get a large enough plot is we'd have to combine plots together.
Correct.
So if somebody wanted to go through that pain point, I don't even know if there's a vacant lot anywhere down in the onset village. Is there? I mean, you're
I guess
talking
with enough money, it
big
probably could be.
demolition and combination, right?
If somebody had deep
Is the
enough pockets.
suggestion to remove the villages from this? I mean, in practical terms, it's not gonna happen.
Yeah, I mean, what, do you wanna consume this board and possibly zoning board with special permits for those villages if we don't think it's a good option or even a viable option for any of the property there?
A good point.
When in doubt, take it out.
Because in practical terms, it won't come to pass. Take it
They'll come in by Wareham Feed and go out by Stamps.
Onset Village Business District, OB1.
So if we take out the villages, we have commercial strip, general commercial, and planned commercial. I haven't seen planned commercial used.
It's something we never, we didn't finish partially because of that. It was kind of a placeholder in the zoning.
The planned commercial.
Yeah.
Where is it on here? It's not charted here anywhere?
We didn't create any land commercial on the zoning map. We didn't put any,
Then there should be
It's a
no
district
for
with no
now.
map.
Okay,
So that's out.
it's a district, but it doesn't have any property,
yeah.
Right.
so it's no then.
This is out too then,
Right.
Wareham
Don't even
Village.
attempt the point of argument on,
Mhm.
This is out.
so that one goes.
And I don't remember if that was part of the, if that was one of the articles that got shot down because they adjourned town meeting before we could address it.
Oh, that's from 2006.
Yeah, that was part of the zoning rewrite in '06, where we created CG, and there was another one too, neighborhood commercial we were gonna create.
So we wouldn't allow anyone to, we don't want restaurants in the industrial area anyway, so that should be no. So basically you have the whole Cranberry Highway, and then these two commercial strips down here.
Why is it no in the industrial?
Why am I saying no to the industrial?
No, why are we saying no?
Well, I mean, this is just addressing drive-through restaurants right now.
Well, if they wanted to put one in there.
Someone wants to put one in for the people that work there. If you can meet the criteria that are imposed.
Because of the limited amount of industrial land
Yeah,
within the
that's
town, I
my
would say
point.
save it for something that has
I see.
I don't wanna,
Or
you know, for the
intensive
sake
job
of
creation.
producing 15 minimum wage jobs in a fast food restaurant, and we could bring in a manufacturing firm on 50,000 square feet, or
They get free
warehousing
taxes too
space.
if they come
Where are
here.
they supposed to get their munchies when they grow?
they're gonna have to go 1,000 feet down the road.
Go to
It's-
the marijuana place.
Oh, yeah, it's gonna be a dispensary, so the guy wants to get his pot to go.
Yeah, that's
Get his
right.
gummy bears to go, right, Howie?
Right, so what we're gonna do, yeah, we're gonna get a Doritos truck to follow around the pot truck selling. We're gonna make more money than the guy selling the weed.
Chinese drive-through.
Somebody gotta supply them when you got the munchies. So we're gonna get rid of Wareham Village and onto Village 1, and special permits in option 1, right? We'll make them no and no.
Yeah.
Everybody agree on that? Think that'll work?
Yeah, I mean, so in your best of memory, have you ever had an appeal to put a drive-through in any of the villages? Has it ever come across you?
No.
Right.
Also, it's better to support the brick and mortar restaurants anyway.
Yeah, I believe so too. Those local
So I
businesses.
guess I'm not putting a Mary Lou's on my shop.
You're gonna put a Mary Lou's?
No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, nuts.
Honeydew.
Actually, your lot's probably the only one where you could get to turn around in there.
He would have to get rid of his motorhome.
We'll make it
Don't you rent that
make
out?
it a food truck.
I'd have to say I would disagree with that because you're right on that corner there. There's just too much going on right there.
Oh, coming down the State Hill, that's a state road coming down the hill.
No, it isn't, not until you get to the top of the hill.
Oh, I thought it always came down to the bottom to where the stop sign is.
No, if you go up by the medical building.
Yeah.
There's a sign, State Highway begins here.
I see, usually I go, I'm flying through this, I never have time to look at the signs. I'll walk in that neighborhood, George.
We need to expand the number 4 though, because as written,
Direct entrance to the use, direct entrance or egress.
no, the state highway, it can be,
Oh, it could be an arterial,
Or major,
or
Thoroughfare.
interior.
arterial, the classification of,
Yeah.
All right, yeah.
all the roads are classified as local collector or arterial.
Is Main Street an arterial? Would Main Street qualify as arterial?
Yes, more than likely it'd be arterial, because it's a part of the state numbered highway.
Okay. You happy with that, Mark?
Yeah. Maybe, I'm just one of 5, so. I think in my mind, it opened up the greatest amount of options. It's the least restricted without, really moving into our small-town feel here. And that's where those commercial restaurants belong. Now, that's not the same, I would consider one of those Mary Lou's a local establishment, but I just don't see them, with these conditions, anything can be done in the villages. And I guess I'm consistent with Ken, that was my thought in the beginning, is that industrial space, that's what I was saying earlier with this discussion, is just because we have available land doesn't mean fill it up with the first person that comes up to us. Let's think about how that land gets used.
Have you seen what's happened to the industrial park in Westwood, University Ave?
That's a little different.
Westwood, no.
It's all retail, restaurants, it's gone
And
from
residential,
industrial to,
big mixed-use project,
yeah.
Westwood Station.
Maybe someday. Right now, we just won. So you okay with that?
Option one, with them two changes in the top, we're gonna add the 4 conditions, and we're gonna modify the 4th one in other roads or whatever, arterial roads.
Was that a motion?
Yeah, it was.
Second.
Favorable action as corrected?
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. And
This goes to Board of Appeals, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't go to us.
Well, it all depends. Could be us. But they're not the special granting authority on all.
Because if it doesn't go to us, we have no control anyway.
I guess on the marijuana bylaw, we are not saying retailers, we're saying marijuana establishments, which covers the gamut, covers all their,
It covers cultivator, craft cultivator, cooperative, product manufacturer, retailer, storefront, and delivery only, social consumption, research, testing lab, transportation, and micro business, which is a business with less than 5,000 square feet of canopy.
We have to open it up to all those uses.
Yes, you do. You're not allowed to ban any of them.
what are your thoughts on the commercial strip?
Run the whole street. As our chair selectman said, we, don't restrict it to a certain area. We got 3, if we have to have 3, you wanna service everybody, whether they wanna put on Marion Road, whether they wanna put it down by Vels, or, have one in Onset. Distribute them, different places, instead of having just concentrated down in the strip. Buzzards Bay will take care
Well,
of
we
themselves.
had two requests, one to include the commercial strip from Robertson's to Buzzards Bay, and the other was to include the area around Depot Street.
This is the area around Depot Street, and this is the section of, additional section of commercial strip.
What was the gentleman here talking about?
Now,
The last gentleman was talking about one on 28 the rest of the way.
this
West Wareham. Pardon?
Yeah, I should use the mic. This particular use right here in the circle around there is a school identified as a school or place where children congregate with a 500-foot buffer around it. That takes in most of the property that was being suggested would be included within the zoning bylaw. This section here doesn't have any of those uses that have been identified for the 500-foot buffer, so this would be open. So I would question as to whether or not this one has any value in saying it's on the other side of Depot.
I think the reason you heard the other side of Depot is special interest, personal interest.
Oh, in both cases, it was
Yeah.
personal interest.
Yeah, because the one on Depot owns an established package store that's there now a business. That's beyond on Depot. That's why he was concerned about where that line was.
Hey, what is going to be the criteria of this licensing here? I think it would be the position of the selectmen to generate the greatest amount of revenue for the tax money, right? Is that gonna be criteria one? Who brings in the largest potential of tax?
I think the permitting authority, the licensing authority on the state level is going to be quite costly. Have you heard anything on that score, Ken?
Yes, the permitting process is significant. It requires a lot of documentation, and it requires the process, including a host community public hearing and a host community agreement.
If they, like, right now, package stores pay a licensing fee to the town. I assume these treatment centers or these shops are gonna do the same, as well as on the state level.
Yes, and
Isn't there right, they got a yearly renewal fee to the state also, right? Or an inspection fee or something like that?
yeah, they'll have a number of different fees associated and procedures
Is that that?
associated with the state licensing.
Yeah, because I think when
It's gonna be more restrictive than the alcohol license.
yeah, because when the medical marijuana came in, there was one fee that was astronomical, it's paid to the state yearly. You know, if you had a license for medical, but they got deep pockets, so.
Yeah, one of the concerns about the way the regulations are being written now is it favors big business.
Yeah.
People with
Deep
big-
pockets.
Deep pockets.
Yeah.
Well, what's the probability of the one institutional license that's out there right now?
That one's coming.
I know, but is that, I don't know that organization. Are they going to bid on a recreational license?
We don't know, but the thing is, Chair Selectman, what the state said that they have first option on it if they wanted it. Who knows? You know, money makes people do strange things sometime, you know?
They have for first option, but they don't have to co-locate it, right? You're saying it would be near impossible to co-locate both in that building?
They do have like a barn in the back of the parking lot that they could have one use there and one use in the main building.
The gentleman that came 2 weeks ago from Fall River, that's involved with the medical,
Yeah.
they got checks and balances getting in and out of it. I can't, you know,
That's what I mean, it's not.
It's hard to think. It's not
friendly
conducive.
for retail use.
Right, it's not conducive for Joe Jones coming down to get a bone to go down and smoke it down the pier. You know, he's gotta go through all kind of checks and balances, ID.
Most of your medical is not smoked.
No, right, a lot of it's oils and everything else, but
So the objective here is equal distribution throughout the zip codes, right?
yeah.
That's the intent, to try to distribute them equal distance across the town.
Well, the closest to equal distribution is commercial strip, just based on zoning. With the possible exclusion of Depot Street, right?
Well, that would be eliminated.
That cancels us out, so
This would be
because of the school.
eliminated because there's a school here, but these two parcels, like where the bank is,
Yeah.
this side is, the gas station, swamp.
So we're providing enough area, we'll let them decide where they want to
Yeah.
go.
This is Shaw's, right? This is Cool Cone? Gateway?
I don't know if that extends to Cool Cone or not. I think it does.
I think it does.
It goes right to the bridge, right? Right to the town line?
Not not on that side of the road. Now, you got Kaleidoscope there, is that considered a school?
Yeah, we are considering that as a school with a 500-foot buffer around it.
That's where kids congregate,
And the
gymnastics and all that.
A store on one end and an ice cream shop on the other.
Yeah, well, Cool Cone's probably the biggest congregation in town.
Yeah,
Well,
but
Cool Cone
specifically
already
says the
sells-
ice cream shop isn't considered, because there's nothing scheduled.
Right.
Cool Cone does already have gummy bears, so. But they're the candy kind. What are those other circles drawn there along that stretch?
Use the mic, Ken.
There hasn't been any appeal from the agricultural property owners, have there?
No, there hasn't been any, although there, at the public hearing for the state, that took place in Barnstable and in Dartmouth, a lot of the growers came out to voice their opinion on the regulations.
Meeting
Which growers? The pot growers or the?
The pot growers, yeah. These, I'm not sure what these are. This is not zoning, this is the
Well, there
use.
is a preschool in there.
And this is the shopping center.
But I don't know what that second, that wedge-shaped piece down below, that might be the playground?
That's more than likely a playground.
Yeah, and the red dot above that is a daycare.
Right.
Preschool. What do you do with a pre-existing, if we said commercial strip, if you had pre-existing non-conforming that's got a special permit for commercial strip?
Who was there first?
A pot shop would be a change of use, and it would be probably not subject to the special permit, right? To the initial special permit, so it may not be allowed.
No, I think the building commissioner would require it to go through special permit for a change of use.
Is there any large open plots of land on commercial strip they could build themselves 200,000 square foot of warehouse on?
Well, they're building one now.
You're talking town, Cape Cod Tire?
Yeah. You got the whole, the old Ocean Spray complex.
So Cape and Allen Tire.
And the old Bennett.
Yeah.
Is it big enough?
Interesting enough, we have not been approached by cultivators or large, asking for large facilities for growing. The largest in the people who come to the town hall, I think is 20 to 30,000 square feet, which would be for a retail center, a growing center, and a processing center where they would handle all the material on site and within their own structure.
Well, all the stuff's coming shipped through Cape Cod Trucking. They'll deliver it, drop ship it at the dock.
If they follow the licensing requirements for delivery, because there's a license for the transportation of marijuana as well.
Can the zoning be to accommodate the different categories In other words, not available you can't, excluding, for example, Benny's. Can we specify the zoning to the use?
That's spot zoning.
If you wanted to create another use, like retail, the use defined here, they have that. If you want to put marijuana retailer as a specific use, you could put that like in commercial strip, I guess.
You couldn't prohibit the other one, so you couldn't create a situation right there.
What if you restrict it to,
Mutually impracticable.
Well, not really, because, I mean, it's impractical to say you're gonna have a 30,000 square foot growth facility in between Red Brook Road and Buzzards Bay, that part of commercial strip. It's kind of impractical there. Not impossible, but it would lend itself to a retail operation. Stuff's grown elsewhere and sold there.
what if you limit it to industrial in the villages? The villages wouldn't have any potential of doing anything else but small retail. And then if you wanted to cultivate, you'd have to consume that industrial land. I mean, I don't know how damaging, this retail shop can be. I mean, it's a smoke shop as far as I'm concerned, right?
Enough said.
Yeah.
It's bad enough.
But it would be very limited in the size of the application in the villages. That would be, almost be an equal distribution. You would cover Onset, you'd cover Wareham, and you'd cover West Wareham.
Well, there's gonna be one in downtown, the Wareham Village, because the medical is gonna convert to retail.
But that's in institutional.
Right.
I'm talking, if you put it in Wareham Village,
Well,
you can move to the other.
That's what I'm saying, that's essentially in the village, because it's right across the street from the Wareham Village District.
I think the way you've got it is not unreasonable. I just question whether we should take that piece of commercial strip further. No, the other end. There.
Yeah, where the blue line is, that's where the transition is.
You get them guys coming down from Blackmore Pond area, you don't want them to travel too far.
Well, they just go in the industrial park.
They get rid of that blue line there, would definitely serve.
Do you think there's any merit to that, or? I mean, a lot of that, big chunk of that is bypass.
But
It's already occupied by,
They'd be small-sized projects, but I think for almost the whole length there, because of the sizes of the lots.
Elks could make some extra money.
They probably be exempt.
Social club. This is one of the, this is a medical dispensary in Rockville, Maryland. They had an interior designer come in from San Francisco. I mean, if we're gonna have something, I want it to be quality. They have their own marketing of the products as well.
Well, some things down in the left-hand corner down there,
That's
the right-hand corner.
container.
Oh, what are they?
What's that?
What are they?
This is out of Rockville,
No,
Maryland.
what are we looking at?
As a grinder.
That's a jar.
You know quite a bit
He
about this
sticks
stuff.
You know,
Salt and pepper.
So we grind up the leaf in there like, yeah, like salt and pepper.
Yeah, it looks like something I've thrown away. People leave things in their apartments.
So, let me just ask you a question. If you said in the villages in the industrial park, would you only then authorize one license to each of those areas? Or could they all gravitate towards the industrial area?
They could gravitate towards the industrial area as long as they were 1,500 feet apart.
And our industrial rules and regs say it has to be an ancillary use, right? For retail.
Industrial, yeah.
so you could have a social consumption establishment on Main Street?
Right now, the Baker administration is in a fight with the Cannabis Control Commission about allowing social consumption and clubs. And they want to postpone the regulations that would allow those and then extend it for more time to consider as to whether or not it's appropriate.
So we don't know what we're providing for then, if we.
No, since the draft, the only thing is the draft regulations that are out now that I sent around to you. And those are gonna change and be reissued March 15th. We'll find out what the new regulations say.
So where
In
we,
the meantime, we'll have something in place though that protects us, which is what the Attorney General had recommended.
So we're saying any commercial strip with the exception of 500-foot school or a congregational area.
Right.
Which would most likely eliminate Depot Street.
Well, the school does that. This part of Depot Street.
Yeah.
Right.
And Gomes, does that open up him?
He's over here somewhere.
So he would be satisfied?
Up on Cranberry Highway, on my, Baja,
Yeah.
Robertson's, Gateway Auto.
Yeah, I'm afraid that some of these local folks, I'm sorry?
That will include Robertson's.
Yeah. Were you saying? Right. I got that now, yeah. Okay. What do we have to decide tonight again? a recommend.
You want to let it go the way it is, or do you want to make some changes to it?
You know, we can go with what we've got. If something turns up in the meantime, we could make an amendment.
You gotta be
As long as it's
less restrictive, right?
as long as it's less restrictive.
So if that's the case, why wouldn't you just keep it restricted to the industrial park? Because anything from that point forward is less restrictive. We're opening miles of control area right now in unknown factors. At least in the industrial park, we know it was contained to that area. And then through public opinion and appeal, if we needed to expand the area, we would.
I agree.
Until the state gives us some more input, we're making a decision. Our decision would be restricted to the industrial area. If the product's needed that much, people will come to the product. You know, what's the next flip? We get through this April 1st, which it just seems all twisted to me that we're being forced into a decision prior to our town meeting without all the facts in place. That seems wacky. But we would just go to a fall meeting? Would give us then another opportunity to make an adjustment?
You could do that. You could adjust it again in the fall, or...
So I think if we make a decision, we can contain the decision, we let a little more shake out on the state level, and then we can make a more educated decision in the fall on where we want to be. I don't know that the floodgates are gonna open. There's so many open-ended issues with the state right now and the federal government. At least we're protected and contained into the industrial area.
I agree, Mark.
Yeah, I don't...
It's surprising, there's some, I've run into some places that have kind of skirted, but they've invested money in storefronts and set up and all that on educational things, but like they're all ready to go once the regulations come in. But I don't know that they have any agreements with the town or anything like that.
No, they have to have a host community agreement.
It wasn't Wareham, it was another town.
I mean, I'm strictly opposed to this stuff to begin with, but if I had to pick one of these businesses to be in, it would be the home delivery. To me, that's it. Park me a truck in the industrial park and I'll bring everything to you. I could care less if anyone come to my storefront, but it's,
Well, the teachers got rid of a couple of armored cars cheap.
no, I'm gonna put that duck boat that's sitting on Main Street and get that thing.
Could put a door to the side, drop the ramp. Madam Moderator, did you have a...
I just have a question on, and maybe Ken can answer it. If you restrict it to just one area, this bylaw has to be reviewed by the AG's office. Are they going to find that so restrictive that they will turn down what was voted? And I think that's something you have to give some thought to.
Well,
Because in the
we
law,
treat
it says-
adult entertainment the same way. They didn't look down their noses at that.
Just a thought, I mean, because this does have to go before the AG's office. Do you want to make something so restrictive? that
The state is so twisted up on this whole issue. Who knows what's gonna happen up there?
Could we then make it less
Margaret
restrictive?
Hurley was at several meetings that I've been to. We had her specifically come and talk to the moderators regarding the marijuana zoning articles and what comes before us. Several of what she presented were less restrictive than what you're talking about. So it's just something you want to think about, how restrictive. And I believe in the pamphlet that was the guidance, you can't make it so restrictive so as not to allow
it's not unreasonable.
That it's
Yeah.
unreasonable. So I think that's something because, going through this whole exercise and bringing it before town meeting, you don't want it to be an exercise in futility and not have the
Yeah.
AG's office approve it.
And when you say that, Claire, to say what's unreasonable, people concerned, going to be involved in this, it's got deep pockets anyway. So they're going to go beyond a doubt to say that you're being unreasonable. You're sticking them someplace where, it's not going to work.
Well, if we put it in the villages, which geographically is, geographically evenly distributed, then somebody's gonna say we're being unreasonable because you didn't allow me any property to build an expansive business on. So you can argue in 100 different directions. I mean, if you wanted to be a major cultivator, your greatest potential is in what zoning?
Well,
You probably won't even come to town because of the rent, unless you're going to build a big facility. Don't know.
If you're gonna build a big warehouse facility, you do that in the B-Dog district.
why don't we leave it the way it's written? It gives you a good mix of real estate availability. And then, like I say, if you find, once this is up and running, that it's something you want to put in the villages, we can address it then. But without knowing, to me, without knowing what kind of traffic this is going to generate, what the clientele is going to be like, I'd rather not put it into the villages.
Each of these is gonna require a host community agreement and a special permit review and approval before they can cite themselves. And that gives the town quite a bit of control of the uses.
But a special permit without criteria is almost as of right.
Well, that's what we put in the criteria, into the special permit that's under the other zoning article. You should reread the regulations again if you're worried about the criteria, about what these are required to do, signage and, even that, it goes down to landscaping and what's required to keep it visible, hide the business, not to make it fairly nondescript on the outside.
So your suggestion, Madam Moderator, your suggestion is that we might be too restrictive? Your concern?
It would be my concern if you did it just in one area.
And it may backfire on us? Leave it as it is for now.
That's what I'd say. And, once we see how it all shakes out, if you want to use it to anybody given any insight as to what kind of businesses tend to gravitate toward these businesses?
What do you mean?
Did these, pick the retail shops, do other businesses,
Congregate as a result of the.
does it bring in positives, or?
A retailer would say, what is the traffic going by the front of my property? And if there's more traffic, there's more opportunity. And so that becomes a more viable retail space.
I think what George is seeing is what businesses does this kind of attract, what the pot smokers do. What do they do?
What are you looking at me for? But my guess would have been tie-dye
Skateboard-
T-shirt
skateboard and
shops.
stuff like that, you know.
I don't know.
Tattoo shops,
Yeah.
Tattoo shops.
piercing shops.
They're definitely gonna have the munchies, so the donut shop's gonna be in.
Listen, but based on the geographical approval of this thing, the most valuable piece of property is gonna be as close to Buzzards Bay as you can get and hit the bridge. The money's not even here in this town. We're just the point of sale for it. There's a larger population of service over the bridge.
What's interesting is that there's a business in Brockton called In Good Health, which is distributing throughout the southeast region, including out on the Cape Cod.
Isn't there one, didn't one just open in Plymouth? Or got approved in Plymouth?
There are 4 facilities in process in Plymouth.
Retail or medical?
Both, I understand.
But based on this shop concealment that you just described, this wouldn't even be conducive to Main Street, Wareham. You couldn't,
See a big neon leaf flashing now.
I mean, you couldn't display it like a barber shop on a main street.
No, you can't have it displayed where minors can see it.
That's not too restrictive.
So could you put it on
I
the,
think in Amsterdam, it's
could you
limited
put
to
it on
the
the
red light
backside
district.
of
What are the zones? We're not gonna do,
Merchants Way?
The signage restrictions would apply there as well, too.
I mean, the gentleman that was here, he fixed up a derelict piece of property and put his business in there. And I think he picked up the one next
Across
door.
the street, yeah.
You know, that's why I wonder does this draw in any positives? Does it bring in good retailers, or does it bring tattoos and piercings, or, you know, what's?
The price points on these drugs is fairly high. It's not an inexpensive product.
Is it cheaper on the black market?
Well,
The idea is to try to make it competitive.
anytime the government gets involved in anything, the price goes up, you know?
so
You know,
if they're expensive, does that lead to crime? The guy's gotta have his high, and store's right here, but he doesn't have the money.
I guess that depends on the addictive property marijuana that you expect.
You know, I'm certainly no expert, but what I'm hearing is that it's much more potent in recent years than it was 20 years ago. That what?
Right.
So the addictiveness, if someone's gotta have it, they've gotta have it. And if it's a cost factor, they have to have the money to.
What's interesting is that there's been a reduction in opioid addiction in Colorado.
Sure, because they're all stoned.
Exactly. The ones that would otherwise be addicted to opioids.
So now they're addicted to marijuana. As I say, I've seen 4 intelligent, wonderful young people's lives destroyed by pot, so I guess I'm a little knee-jerk, you know, I'm a little knee-jerk biased.
I agree with you. I've seen the same thing, and it's troubling.
And I haven't seen young kids' brains fried with alcohol, you know, they do these. So the more restrictive we can make it, the better, but Claire's point is well taken, so let's get a middle ground. I would say not in the villages for sure. My preference would be not in the villages. And as you have it now,
Right now, it's industrial, institutional, and Cranberry Highway east of Depot.
Did we even have anyone here from the onset district to speak? Who was from the onset district?
Oh, Winna was here, but she didn't speak.
Yeah, Cat was here.
Cat was here.
Okay. It's a runaway train. Just make a decision. The state's gonna say, put it wherever you want in your town. So, we'll be converting farmland here if we let the state do it.
Yeah. I mean, it is zoning, it's not immutable, it's not cast in stone. I mean, as was stated before, if there's a problem, we can address it. And it's gonna require a 2/3 vote of town meeting to pass it.
And so if they don't pass, if they don't like our zoning, then what happens?
Then, it reverts back to the existing zoning that's in place right now, which is a moratorium until June 30.
And then they can go anywhere? And after
Well,
that?
that's what the Attorney General has said, that if we don't have something in place and in play, it'll go anywhere. So the response would be to get something in for a special town meeting in April, within the annual. And maybe a general bylaw.
But realistically, if agreeing that this perhaps is the best compromise now, the idea that later it is zoning and later we can change it, that would be difficult if they've already established positions in these zones. We're not going to be able to, and we can't make it more restrictive anyway, so there's not much we can change later unless we add allow them to expand.
Right, which is what you might expect, that there'd be a petition article or two.
I do a motion. So I move that.
We fly with the draft?
Pardon?
We go with the draft the way it's written?
As written.
I'm sorry, the only restriction between the 3 licenses is they cannot be within 1,500 feet of each other?
And they have to be in one of those districts.
So if all 3 of these licenses wanted to be in one commercial stripped area, as long as they're 15 feet apart from each other?
Oh, we expect one to be in the institutional district.
But that's a medical license.
Yeah, but they're allowed to get a retail license, and we expect that they will be getting a retail license.
Okay.
Because they're gonna be allowed by the state regulations the way it is now.
Okay. And then the other 2,
So the other 2 can go in the industrial zone or in the CS district. And hopefully we can negotiate between to spread them out.
but why do we have to give this up to the industrial district if we're giving it up to the CS district? They're right in the same geographical area.
No, we're not doing the whole, as written, it's the CS district from Depot Street east.
Okay.
What was it? You had a DMZ in there, Ken.
So it'd be the industrial district here, the institutional district here, expectation, and then the CS district down here. So we spread it out in 3 quadrants of the town.
But 2 of those licenses could end up in the industrial district, but only 1,500 feet apart from each other.
Correct. And there's a children's sports facility in one of the industrial parks that would restrict within 500 feet.
So we couldn't equally distribute these licenses then? Only one license in each of these thirds?
That would be the intent.
But that's at the discretion of the license holder where they're going to put their business.
That's correct, and the property owner.
But we couldn't impose on them only one in industrial, one in institutional, one in CS district east of Depot.
I think that might be too restrictive, but I can't be sure.
So what's the motion to is approve as drafted?
As drafted. But your point is well taken, though. Could we try to stipulate the,
I'll look into that and see if there's not.
and if not, then we back off.
If it seems appropriate to do that, we can.
Well, I
We're
think
not
the
gonna have-
licensing authority could, I mean, they try to locate package stores, although that hasn't worked out too well recently. They tried to make them, distribute them evenly. And I would think that would be a function of the licensing board. But maybe they need the teeth of zoning, I don't know.
So there's a-
Anyway, so you made a motion to move favorable action for the article as drafted?
Yes. Yes.
Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Discussion? I think this is a good start, and if we find out how this actually shakes out when the state gets through making their changes, if there's a reason to adapt. Like, say the guy with the medical license decides he doesn't want retail. You know, maybe we want to open up another area or something.
You may want to put it down somewhere on 28 so you can catch that Cape traffic, you know?
Mm-hmm.
You know, on,
One down Cape and one off Cape, so there's no lane crossings. Maybe they want to put one in the median where the landscaping's going.
or 195, there's a little wedge of land in there, ideal.
What are we gonna do about marijuana drive-throughs? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Entertain a motion to adjourn?
I think I would. All in favor?
Aye.
Never goes quickly.
So much energy into this.
Meeting adjourned, George?
Say again?
The meeting adjourned?
It is.